What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. This is Brandon from Brandon's Show. It is Friday, January 15th, 2021. Show number 13. Would have been kind of cool if 13 fell on the 13th, but we'll take it. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Let's see who's in chat. We have Bill G. What's up, Bill G? Flat for Life. Ian Adams. And Matrix Media and Page 42. What's up, guys? Brandon's Escape just joined. What's up, Brandon's Escape? Hope everybody's doing good out there tonight. We got a few people in Discord that we're going to get to momentarily. Probably won't be a super long show tonight. We'll see. Fridays are typically a little slow around here, but we'll see what happens. We'll see who pops in. I think the Globers are ignoring us, but that's okay. Here's the Streamlabs link if you want to support the show. I'll pin that to the top. And yeah, I'm going to get straight to Discord right now.
I think he's traumatized Jimbo. Listen, is this going live, Brandon? Say no.
I just unmuted it when you said I think he's traumatized. Just then.
Yeah, we were talking about Trump, so let's move on.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Let's get rid of Trump. Good evening, Brandon.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Oh, good.
Good evening.
We got Allie B in the house, obviously. Allie, what's going on, man?
Oh, good. Yeah, just had a good wee conversation. So
yeah. Good. Jeremy.
Yeah, it was a good show last night. Yeah, a good show. I kind of, I just ended up listening, I think.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
What's up, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Chilling.
Good, man. And Jimbo, how you doing, Jimbo?
I'm doing pretty good today, actually, and I don't know if it got mentioned again afterwards, but this intrepid searchlight there with its 7-mile beam, I'm still very happy to contribute 10% of the cost to getting one on a beach somewhere and letting it shine on. See what happens.
Yeah, that's an interesting offer you made there.
And there's no, I don't know, there's no, when there's talk about having several drones, and it's logical too to set them up to water levels and stuff and sort of leapfrog to get a level, but that's complicated and it's open for a little bit of doubts. But if you're, say, for example, and I'm sure it can, if you're 40 miles away and you can read someone's Morse code from that light from ashore on a good night, then it's a line of sight communication.
No, I agree with you that would be strong evidence towards,
ship to ship. They used to use it and get 7 miles easily.
Yeah.
To do Morse code ship to ship.
Well, they used to use that back in the day, like when the U.S. Army was fighting against Pancho Villa down in the Southwest. They used these system of mirrors. You ever read about that?
Yeah, and they still have those things of flaps that they used to slap on to send the Morse code in front of these lights, searchlights, when they're aimed horizontally.
Didn't Indians use mirrors as well or something like that, didn't they? Or they use reflective things to communicate as well as smoke, but didn't they use mirrors?
Oh, I've never heard of the Indian. Well, that wouldn't surprise me, but...
No, I mean, American Indians, yeah. Or something. Or maybe that was just in the movies. Sorry.
I don't know.
Having a little mirror can save your life, Yeah,
that's
true. If you're
true.
lost and you reflect it up at a pilot or something and signal them, they can send help. Without it, they never know you need it.
You can cook as well with it.
It'd be interesting to see that 40 or that 7-mile searchlight, but...
Yeah.
There's other things that have been done, similar, Jimbo, with mirrors and.
Well, yeah, but not quite with a direct beam like that. Look, Robotham did 6 miles, and they had old telescopes and other, junkyard equipment, hand polished lenses and stuff. They didn't have like lights that could punch through the air for miles and miles and miles and miles.
Yeah, true.
Otherwise, you would have put a searchlight down by the water. But today things are different. We have all these different tools, new technology for light. Like I say, my handheld flashlight runs on 12 volts, just like a car battery. I can shine it at the mountain 12 miles away. There's some type of metal or dish that reflects the light back. That means my little handheld flashlight, I'm seeing the light traveling 25 miles to the mountain and back.
Yeah,
And a
that's
kid
pretty
could
crazy.
hold up this. It's not like it weighs 50 pounds or anything. This light might weigh less than a bag of sugar, about 4 pounds, 3 pounds. It's not really that bad. It's not really that big. But it can be seen, like when this father and son go out and the dad drives 5 miles away, he's seen the flashlight, but he doesn't know how far it can shine yet. He drives 5 miles away, he's on the phone with the kid. The kid turns it on, asks, "Can you see it?" The dad doesn't say yes or no, he just laughs out loud. Because he's 5 miles away looking at a flashlight in his son's hand. No one can see a flashlight 5 miles away. Even what do you call them there? The one security guards use all the time there.
Oh, mag lights?
The mag lights. Even the best mag light is like lame. No, you feel a warm fuzzy feeling when you turn these sons of bitches on.
Right.
I mean it. You don't know. It's like you get a glow. It's like that dad who laughed because he was thrilled. He was sort of amazed. It showed his astonishment. And he was only 5 miles away. He could have been 10 and he still would have seen the goddamn light.
Huh, that's pretty
Anyway.
that's a long way to see a light, that's for sure. But yeah, so your offers out there, Jimbo, for sure. You said that can they be rented? Do you know?
Not this one. This one's I've only seen them for sale new from authorized distributors of the Carlyle Group, same group that Bin Laden and Towers and all this stuff. That Carlyle Group, they're the ones who have the rights on this light and the distribution of it. It's anti-pirate searchlight. It's made to blind pirates miles away. It's technically a weapon. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, anti-pirate searchlight. That is pretty damn cool. Anti-piracy security. I'm looking for it right now. Now, what did you say about the Carlyle Group?
They're the ones who own the rights and distribution of this product.
Oh, I mean, but you mentioned Bin Laden.
Yeah, well, the Carlyle Group, the Bin Laden brothers and everything were in the Carlyle Group office when the towers went down. The Bin Ladens all had free air passes and were up in airspace when every American was grounded. The Bin Ladens were up in aircraft being protected.
Right,
after their so-called brother bombed the two towers.
Right.
The rest of his family was being protected by the U.S. Special Services.
Yeah.
No one else was allowed in the air, but all these family members were. Normally, if your brother blew up a building, they'd come arrest you and ask you questions.
Yeah, they're a financial group. I think they funded. Carlyle. I think they funded. What's his name? Bush as well. They're global financiers. Put it that way. They've got deep pockets.
Yeah, like billionaires, right?
Companies,
Bin Laden,
bigger than that, trillionaires. They're an investment group. They're actually they invest hundreds of billionaires' money and stuff like that. Or
if I'm not mistaken, Henry Kissinger is on the board of the Carlyle Group.
Oh, well, that's bad news. If Kissinger's on the board, then yeah, I'm sure they're up to no good.
Well, he's been an advisor to, I think, every president. What's it? He's had a position. He's a war advisor or tactics or something like that. Advisor.
How old is that guy?
Every president. Every president since I think Nixon. He was on Nixon's crew as well.
I think he's 163 now, going on 164.
He was born in 1923, so he's 97 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I knew he was old. He's dodgy. He's dodgy.
Oh, he's bad news, man.
Yeah.
They mentioned him in all those. Oh, what's that guy's name? I'm always talking about hypernormalization. That
Oh,
He's the
documentary.
one who's
Has anybody
quoted
seen
as
that damn
power.
documentary, Hypernormalization?
No, Kosho told me to watch that, but I haven't had time.
Well, I think
yet.
I'm going
heard
to
was
watch it
good.
now as well.
His famous quote is "Power is the greatest
Hypernormalization.
aphrodisiac." Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, this is well worth
Power
I
watching.
mean, if he was in bed
Hard-on.
with Nixon, he's obviously legit.
He was in bed with all the presidents.
Yeah.
In fact, he chooses presidents before Americans choose presidents. Before an American can run for president, they need the blessing of Henry Kissinger. When whoever in the I can see Alaska and Russia from my porch, they both needed Kissinger's blessing before they could run. They both had to meet with him. Say, I love Israel. If I'm elected, I'll keep sending money to Israel. Sounds good. You can run. Basic idea. But you have one person who chooses who y'all can vote for. You think you have a free election?
Well, we don't think we have a free election. I don't think anybody on here honestly thinks we have a free election. But yeah, I get you. I mean, we only get two choices to choose from anyway, right?
And I hate to see money go to that group, Carlyle Group.
Yeah.
But for the cause, I don't care. I would never normally do it because money is in a way power. And if you can knowingly not give money to an enemy, then you're helping. But in this case, well, it is kind of an enemy, and well, we want the product.
Jimbo, would you say this light thing would be definitive and we'd falsify the globe with it?
No, yeah. Well, no matter what, people will have cognitive dissonance. It won't change them, but for others, absolutely.
It's definitive, you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like I know my gas pay in the Bay of Chaleur. I know you put it on the beach in New Richmond and you'll be lighting up boats, and 20 miles away they'll be able to see well enough to not need their own lights.
Hey, Professor Bill has a message for us. Or Professor Bell. Wow, these people will reach out to anyone to besmirch their name. No evidence for anything, just feelings. We're talking about Henry Kissinger, dude. You're gonna defend Henry Kissinger as if he's your fucking uncle or something? Like we're talking shit about the nice guy down the street? Give me a fucking break, dude.
Power is the most powerful aphrodisiac. The greatest aphrodisiac.
Now, these guys know nothing,
if
Brandon.
You want to hail someone
they won't even look into who these guys are. They'll read his biography and what a wonderful guy. They go with the mainstream, but they don't really know these people the way that we know them, kind of thing. A lot of truthers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Dr. Strangelove in the flesh.
Oh, go ahead, Jimbo.
But they're idiots.
So, you ever see Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah, the mad scientist is based in part on
the guy in the chair.
Yeah,
the handicapped guy in the chair. That's Kissinger.
Well, listen, he practiced something called realpolitik, okay? And it says, is politics or diplomacy based primarily on considerations of given circumstances and factors rather than explicit ideological notions or moral and ethical premises? In that respect, it shares aspects of its philosophical approach with those of realism and pragmatism. It is often simply referred to as pragmatism in politics, pursuing pragmatic policies. The term is sometimes used pejoratively to imply politics that are perceived as coercive, amoral, or Machiavellian. He's a collectivist, greater good, dude.
Where'd you just read that off of?
Yeah, exactly.
Wikipedia.
Brandon, you took the words right out of my mouth there, Brandon.
No.
That's what that is. That's what all the words meant, and that's what they teach politicians, blah de blah, all the people in power as a given. So that's the way their brains think, and they think of the bigger picture or the greater good. It doesn't matter if 50 kids get blown up by a missile. We got one terrorist kind of thing. That's the way these people think. That's exactly. But these guys that are criticising, these guys that are in the chat criticising that Dr. Phil don't know these people at all. So
I knew that wasn't going to end well when the first part said he wasn't worried about ethics or something.
Right?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I hate that greater good shit. Remember when Madeleine Albright was Secretary of State and she got like interviewed, and I can't remember who it was. What asked her, hey, do you know that 500,000 children died in Iraq as a result of your policies? I could probably find it to get the exact words, but she says, yeah, it was worth it. That's the kind of people that we're dealing with here.
it wasn't that Barbara Walters, was it? But it was that woman. Was it not in that what do you call it? 60 Minutes, or where they interview someone famous, the woman. No,
I don't remember. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
I think I forgot about that, Brandon. It's amazing we've seen the same stuff, man. It seems to me that a lot of us have trod the same path, shall we say, and bumped into the same kind of things. Essie's the same. It's funny that you guys remind me of stuff I'd forgotten about.
I used to
It's
be
like bringing back old memory.
big into politics.
Yeah, me too, mate. Yeah.
You still listen to Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, and all them guys?
I did
I
at one
didn't listen to
time
them.
in the early days, like maybe,
Me too.
10, 15 years ago. And then once you realize, oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute, this is all bullshit. Then
Yeah, that was me too about 10, 15 years ago.
yeah.
All right, yeah.
Media. Okay, so here's the article. I think I can get the exact quote. Leslie Stahl, that's who it was.
All right.
On U.S. sanctions against Iraq. We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima when the atomic bomb was dropped in Japan. And is the price worth it? Madeleine Albright, I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it. This was while it was happening. This was in 96.
These people in charge have these elites, they have no empathy at all. They don't.
Yeah, but what was the bigger picture? That's quite interesting what you brought up there, Brandon. Because I'm thinking, because she said, yeah, it was worth it. Well, I'm trying to think, because what she was thinking, what the plan was. I know it was oil, but surely it was something bigger than that she was told.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The bigger picture. What was the bigger picture? That's what I want to know.
Their globalist elite agenda.
Yeah,
That's
there you go.
The bigger picture.
Yeah.
No
but
shit.
Think that affected all countries, so that was planned, right? So that was the bigger picture, because like all over the world, it affected nearly. Well, it did. Our country, Britain, sent troops there. America, God, they flung them over there.
Sorry, read how she responded again, Brandon. What was her response?
She said, I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Oh, all right.
500,000 dead kids.
For what, though? Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. It couldn't have just been oil. But what Jeremy said there, it was because a lot of new laws got brought in, and, words got changed, like a terrorist. I heard a scary one the other day. It was about you could get... forget it. It doesn't matter. It'll come to me. But it was really scary because. What was that?
Mic check.
Oh, hey, Gadget.
Yeah, sorry, I'm chatting away there.
Oh, no, that's cool.
It's a long time since I've talked about these old things, before Flat Earth and that, because it sounds like you guys were deep into it as well. So.
Oh, yeah.
And I've not had a chance for ages to talk about all this, symbolism and media and stuff like that.
I was super obsessed with it. I researched everything, just as crazy about Flat Earth as I was. Yeah. I was into that stuff.
God,
did you guys see the new photo knocking about the internet there from Dublin to Wales? Did you see that?
What happened?
What?
There's a new photo floating around the internet. Apparently, some guy in Hout at 170 meters elevation, he can actually see Wales at 140 kilometers away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I got it up
there's-
on screen now, and yeah, I plugged it into the stupid curvature calculator earlier, and you should only see the highest 2 peaks according to what I could find out about those mountains.
Oh, that was looming. It was
It's gone
looming.
viral on the internet.
There's
and,
no
the
observation
news
that's
actually picked
gonna-
it up.
There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of observations of us seeing too far. No observation is gonna do it. For
No,
us
we
at
know.
this point.
We know.
Yeah, but it's still nice. It's still
But, you know,
amazing,
guys,
isn't it?
that's
It's
my-
still
that's
amazing,
my-
though, that you can, these
Yeah,
pictures are
that's my
coming
neck
out.
of the woods. I remember fishermen when I was a young fella. They could say that they could see England from Dublin. Like, it's fucking true. All
I'm
depends
not
on the
saying
weather.
stop doing observations, but just know in the end that it's not gonna really do anything for
But
us. I don't
think of it as
think.
you're looking at nature. What a beautiful! I would love to see that. Look through my camera, right? Look through my camera and see 140 miles. Are you joking?
No, it's an amazing
That's like
view.
amazing.
It is an amazing
Yeah,
view.
And that's nature. That's what whoever made it or whatever, how it ever came about. That's nature, man.
And this
That's
is,
about 10 kilometers from where I grew up.
oh really?
I know
Oh,
that
that's
place.
cool.
Yeah.
The thing with oh shit, did I just forget what I was gonna say? Yeah, I just forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. Here's the path. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. I lived in Michigan on the bay. I'll just show you on a map. On Huron Bay, it's part of Lake Huron, one of the Great Lakes, and every once in a while, is this a map? Oh, jeez. Every once in a while, you could see across perfectly. Like there was days, the days when it's like glass, when the water,
Really clear days. Yeah.
like you can just
Well,
see
the Glovers want to
forever.
say on those days. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's all right.
The Glovers want to say on those clear days where we see too far that those are the worst seeing conditions.
Yeah, cold, crispy days. Yeah.
Oh, God bless them.
Must
Yeah,
have been
that's
terrible
funny.
seeing conditions those days when it was nice and clear and you could see really far. Terrible seeing conditions.
Look at all that looming. Oh my God, you can see so far. It's so fucked up, the view.
WS in the chat, he says, well, you can't see the bottom of the mountains.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to be able to see the bottom of the mountains, but
Yeah, not even the top.
all right.
So, what was your calculation? I got 800 meters or something like that, was it? 140 kilometers. What is it?
Yeah, that's the amount that should be hidden, is like 800 meters.
Yeah.
I think that's about what it
The
was.
highest point in Snowdon is 1,020 meters, I think.
We can bring it up and do it right now. I
I
always
think
use.
it's 1,020 meters of Snowdon, yeah.
It was. Eye height was how much? 170,
Yeah, 170 was that, yeah.
and it was
Meters or feet?
170 meters. He was up on Hoathead, beside Dublin.
All right. This doesn't include refraction stuff, but it gives you an easy
And the highest
calculation.
mountain-
And then once we include refraction, we can see our ass in the telescope. So
The highest mountain in Wales, it's Snowdon. It's,
man.
I think it's 1,020 meters.
Yeah, the tallest
yeah.
peak is about 1,000 meters. That's what I found too. And there was only 2 peaks. Now, what is that range called again? It is
It's Snowdon Range.
Snowdon Mountain
It's
Range.
Yeah,
I had
Snowdon
another
National
question.
Park,
Oh, my bad. I had another question for Rumpus last night, but it got crazy about refraction.
You can ask me, and I'll answer as if I were Rumpus.
Have we got
I'll save
time?
it for.
Have we
save
got
it for
time?
Rumpus.
Brandon, this is only a 3-hour show, mate.
All right. Well, after I get done calling you an idiot, you might get something of value. No.
You
Oh,
utter,
well,
utter moron.
Well, if you call me an idiot, you're not calling someone else an idiot, so that's always a good. I'll take one for humanity.
That is very nice of you.
Well.
List of mountains and hills in the British Isle. So I just want to see a list of these damn mountains, the highest peaks. I think that's what that was. And list of summits of Snowdon. I don't know if that's just that one mountain or if it's the whole range.
It is. It's the highest peak. Yeah, it's the highest.
It's the highest peak. So you should only see the two highest peaks of that mountain. 700 meters should be missing. And let's see what we see in that picture. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I mean, we see the whole thing and the surrounding mountains that are lower than that. So yeah, I mean, this is more than you should see on if it was just geometry. But like Jeremy said, on the magic unfalsifiable globe, you can see your own ass with telescope if there's no atmosphere. So.
Yeah, that was on the 12th, and there's another
For
guy.
the right
photo.
conditions, not even.
I'm trying
You
to
know, with
look
some
at
of
the
these photographs, sorry for interrupting, I just had an idea. With some of these photographs, you should just send them into newspapers, nothing to do with flat earth, and just pretend and just get them, because if they're really, you know, they're quite amazing photographs, but just try to slip them into the...
Ali, that's what the guy did. He's not a flat earther. He sent it into the newspaper.
Oh, you misspoke, Brandon. You misspoke.
It's
not with no.
independent.
There you go.
That's the Irish
Well, we should be
newspaper.
doing that. Travis should be doing that with some of his photographs, or get someone makes a photograph, because some of the mirages and stuff like that, they're quite, you know, if you messed about and, what do you call it, you know, and tidied it up a bit in Photoshop, I don't mean change it, but just tidied it up a bit. Because he's taking some amazing photographs, you know, boats upside down and sharks.
He's got lots of good stuff.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Brandon, you misspoke just now.
No, you're right, Jeremy. I did misspoke. I said in a vacuum. Right. That was incorrect. It's with maximum refraction or whatever. The right refraction.
Yeah. I just wanted to clear it up because the ballers will be all over you for it. So.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, man.
No doubt.
But yeah, I was just going to show you. This is where I lived, right here on the tip of this thumb. We call it the thumb because Michigan looks like a hand. And every once in a while we could see across here. It's like 42 miles, and you could see everything. The city's right on the shore. You could see everything. Just every once in a while when it was really clear. With no problem whatsoever.
In other words, in the worst seeing conditions possible.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah. The biggest, highest, super fantastic refraction events. However you want to name it. But yeah, that happens. I'll tell you what I've never seen is curve.
Montreal.
Oh, go ahead, Ali.
Oh, well, I wanted to say to SE Montreal, you listen. I just want to say something to.
Oh, yeah, I'm listening, bro. Sure, yeah.
Right, I've just walked out. It was just Brandon talking about Lake Michigan there. I think they brought out this, you know, this travelling ban because they were trying to stop me and you to get together. Experiment and having a drink.
That's this
right?
whole thing.
That's what it is. That just came to me there, man. Just a second. Sorry, Brandon.
Well, if that's what they were doing, then I agree with it. I don't know if the two of you in real life together would be such a great idea. So I'm now behind the band.
Good one.
We had an experiment. We had an experiment lined up and all that. A few experiments, anyway. You know.
What were you guys gonna do?
Oh, well, I was going to try and do a fishing line. We were going to get a boat. There was a few ideas we were going to try.
Oh, I remember you guys talking about that. Brian Leakey was all excited about that too, if I remember correctly.
Right. The thing is, that's good that came up there. I didn't mean it to come up, but I just want to, because what's it called, George, and you know they're going on about that, and what's his Big Balls, Big Blue or something. They go on about the, you know, the dip in it. You know, you can't get it totally tight. You just use that. This was my idea, right?
Yeah.
Is that you get 3 miles of fishing line, about £2, £2 breaking strain fishing line, and you get a boat and you put it on get it on a fishing rod, right? And you pull it out with your fishing, and you get a drag. There's a drag thing on the reel, so your line doesn't snap. So if you're going hunting, you know, big fish, you set your drag. So if the line's about, you set it at a poundage, but it just starts spinning like a clutch, and get that on it, and just head off in the boat and keep it doesn't matter if it goes into the water, because when you get to the other side, you can pull that tight. They say you can't do that. That's absurd that you couldn't pull it tight You want it
Are
to
you trying to
snap
make it?
anyway.
Are you
But
trying to
listen,
make the line?
they're saying, wait a minute, they're saying, oh, but it'll snap. You want it to snap because where it snaps will give you the answer to whether the water is flat or is curved. If it snaps above, right? If it snaps above in the heights on either side, because remember they say there's a hump in the middle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Right.
if it snaps above, right? If it snaps in the middle above, that means it must be flat underneath. Otherwise, you wouldn't in the middle. You wouldn't see it because it'd straighten out. It'd be the that line that goes direct from foot to foot that they draw on the ball.
Right. A
'Cause
chord.
that's what that fishing line would represent, and you'd be falsifying. You'd be finding out whether it was flat or curved quite simply.
By
And for
where
these
the
people,
lines?
for these people to say that it would, oh, it's snap and all this. I explained, I said, that's exactly what you want it to do. You want it to snap.
So where it
Because then you'll
snaps
find
is
out
what?
it's dead easy. I mean, they were saying, oh, you won't be able to see. You can get that, accident tape, and it's all dead cheap. It costs about $50, $50 to do this, man. But that red tape that you see accidents, with the chevrons on it, you just every 100 meters you just tie. It's light as anything. Light as anything. Just tie it every 100 meters in the boat.
So we got the
So-
fishing line, and you're going in a boat, and then it snaps, and then we see
I
where it
explained
snaps.
to you. Right. So if it snaps under the water, right? If it snaps under the water,
Oh, yeah.
You
You're
understand?
expecting. Okay. You're expecting the line to go under the water due to the hump of Earth curve, right?
well,
If
of
it's
course,
curving?
man, because water curves.
Yeah.
Have you not seen the drawings, Jeremy? Now
Here's the
you've been
thing.
going across to Gem Pandas for years now, man. Right. Well, that's what it is. They've got a hump. Remember that hump? Right.
Yes,
Well, this will falsify the hump.
Yes, I understand. That would be a good thing, but how much surface how much would you need to pull on it to overcome the surface tension of the water for it to go under the water? I think that's what the thing is.
No. It's thin line. They're going on about surface. Try to see. I've been fishing all my life, Jeremy. Right. I've been. I was brought up beside the water. We used to fish cod, mackerel, saithe, salmon, the whole lot. Right. So I know all different types of. I know fishing line floats. There's no surface tension there. If you ever get snagged, right, and you pull it, it'll tighten. There's a straight line. That thing goes taut, and it can be 100 meters, and it'll go right to the bottom. If your spinner or your weight with your bait is caught in a rock, when you are standing on the shore with your fishing rod, it's about 8 foot high. Is when you're reeling it in, that thing goes straight in to the water, straight in a straight line. There's no surface tension there. There's no problem with that. That's not a problem. That isn't because the thing is, if it lays flat, you just need to have it a certain height above, and it doesn't matter if they say, that's higher up and lower, because remember all their drawings that they do is a ball with this line going through the centre, and you've got the hump, which is called the sagittal. Right, so that fishing line, well, that's an experiment. It's cheap, and you can have as I say, as you're going along in the boat, every 50 meters, take a reading of the temperature of the water, the temperature of the area, and have the same instruments, just cheap instruments. You can buy cheap hygrometers or
what do you need the temperature for?
Listen, and stick them on, and the temperature, and stick them on a pole.
No. Why do you need the temperature?
Say again? Because they're going to say, listen, because they'll say something's amiss or whatever. So you just go and gather as much data as you like. You could even do a laser test. You could do all the tests that they complain about, that you don't have the temperature, the readings of the temperature, and you can give them all the data every 100 meters. You say, well, it was that there, so you're telling me the light's refracting. There's loads of experiments you could do cheap.
Yeah, it's a physical thing. All right. Let me just say something about a fishing line.
It doesn't have to be like the National Geographic guys. That's what I was looking at. A group of guys just getting together with loads of drones and everything, man. Flyer Theatre's got a great a great thing, and it would be just the fact of that people just come together for a laugh, and it's not, you know what I mean, and things that get done, and that's the way. And they couldn't ever say it's not an experiment because we'd be doing it all the same, kind of thing. And it's
Let me just say something about the line. If you do it over land, there you could in a real world scenario, you know, not having to calculate it or go to one of the sag calculators, you could measure the amount of sag by measuring the distance on the ground right beneath the line, and then measuring, you know, take one of those fabric tape measures that bends and put it right to the line. Once you have it all stretched out, you measure the amount of line that is, and see, you know, you'll be off obviously a little bit because it's sagging. You know what I'm saying, Brandon?
Yeah.
That's how you measure the sag. That's how you, instead of having to go off what the calculator says, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, you could actually measure it and know for sure.
Right, here's one, Jeremy.
Much.
Jeremy, listen to this, right? So you're doing this with a fishing line. So say it does sag in the middle. That still tells you it's not a curved surface, right?
Yeah, you just need it to
Because
come
the
off
two
the
ends would be
ground.
above.
Yeah, you just need it.
Yeah, but the two ends would be above the water. If
Right.
you're doing it over water, that's what I'm saying. If you do it over water,
Yeah.
the two ends will be over the water. So if it sags and there's a sag and it's dipping in the water,
Yeah, if you put it,
it'll mean,
well, it's
it'll mean
calculated
it's flat.
to
It'll mean there's
the
no
thing is,
curve
it's
there as well. You
The
understand?
thing is, it's Go ahead, Ali.
No, you say it, because
The
I'm
thing is,
finished your
almost every line I've ever seen in my life is calculated to sag more than the curvature. So it would be hitting the water either way. You know what I'm saying?
No. Yeah, but I'm not going with the. Yeah, I know that was brought up. I can't remember what I said to that the last time. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I'm just
But
saying
that's
there is a way for us to.
Yeah, but that's not right. I had a way. I've forgotten it because it's ages since I've even thought about it or talked about it. But there's a what do you call it? There's an answer to that. I just can't think. I'm stoned. I'm just back from Switzerland. I'm just smoking a couple of joints and my brain's really fuzzy. I've been driving 14 hours today. So
Holy shit.
So Brandon,
Yeah, but-
the thing is,
it's good.
Brandon, apparently, the day that they took this shot from Dublin to Wales, some dude in Wales took a picture of Ireland. I just posted it in the chat there if you want to have a look at it.
Oh, sure.
so Brandon, that's one of the ways where you could do it
The
over.
same day, on the same day, it was the 12th of January.
That's one of the ways you could do it over water. Remember, I was saying, well, what's a line that doesn't stretch, so we would know. But that's how you can measure it, even with a line that does stretch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just thinking because if the line didn't stretch, I guess, but man, it'd be hard to measure
You just get
3 miles of line with
Yeah,
a
you-
tape measure.
No, you get one of those. You'd have to get one of those fabric ones so it bends with the tape.
Right.
Or you could mark the. Yeah, you could get one of those fabric tape ones to pull it to put it right to the
Jeremy,
line.
you're complicating it, mate. Honestly, you're complicating it. In my head, I've got it all planned in my head, but you're making it more complicated than it actually has to be. And
I hear you. No, I like what you
You know-
said about pulling it and the line should go underwater, but I don't know. I'm not so sure. There's going to be a lot of surface tension on the line of 3 miles of line. No.
No. How do you mean? Right. What will stop the fishing line from going under? It's very, very thin line, 2 pound. It has no it's like you cutting water with a razor blade, basically.
Is it buoyant? Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
would need
not
a math
uber.
guy.
But the thing is, if you pull it tight, it'll sink. You know, it's light fishing line, man. Have you never used? Have you
buoyant?
used fishing line? Think
Is it
about
buoyant?
it,
Yes,
Jeremy.
I fished before.
Yeah, but I'm
Is
saying
it buoyant? Is the line buoyant?
Yeah, it floats on the surface. Yeah.
All right. So you would need some amount of force. All right. I don't know. We need a math guy to figure out.
Never, oh, geez, man, you're sounding like a math guy. What do you need a math guy? Common sense.
To figure out the surface tension of how hard you would have to pull it to make it go under the water to break the surface tension.
Look, it'll go. Look, Right, I just told you about if you snag a line, right, on a thing, when you pull, you can pull that completely tight before it snaps. You understand? So
Yes.
when you pull it, if say I was on one side 3 miles away and you were there 3, if we kept winding, right, eventually, and I'm telling you, if you have your rod in the water, you can even have your rod in the water and have the boat find where the line is, right, and just have your rod in the water and just keep tightening. I can assure you, it will tighten, right, and it'll go tight, and it'll snap, right, but it will go tight, Jeremy. There will be no sag in the water, or even if it was sitting on top of the water, because the water will be supporting it.
I
Well,
think
that gets-
Jeremy's
the
point
fact that
is,
it's
will it
buoyant-
go underwater if it's floating on the top of the water and you pull on it?
Yes, it will, because it will. That's what I'm saying. You can put your rod. You put your
Allie,
rod in
you're
the
talking
water.
about Allie.
Yep.
You're talking about going fishing and having a few meters of line. We're talking about a mile, half a mile worth of line. It's different. I feel you. I believe you that.
Right,
it
no,
should
no,
go under
right,
the-
okay, but I've thought of all that, Jeremy, and I've got that problem solved that you're talking about. That is not even an issue, right? Trust me. I've went over it in my head. Yeah, I know you're trying to help, and it's good to have people say, have you thought of that? Have you thought of that? Have you thought of that?
Yeah.
I've thought of everything. I know what could go wrong. I know what things are probably going to go wrong. Right? I've thought, I've got the whole scenario in my head, man, but it's good getting in.
Well, get it out
I
there in
believe you.
reality, goddammit, Allie. Do it.
Right, here's a story. Here's a story. I'll give you a quick story, right? I actually ordered 3 miles, right? 3 miles of fishing line from a
What
place
test
in
is it?
Britain, right? A place in
What's the
Britain.
test? The tensile
What's
strength.
that?
What's the tensile strength?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Right, Brandon. Right,
What?
Brandon, listen.
Jeremy,
I
give the
ordered
guy
the-
a break, bro.
I ordered
14
the
hours
fishing
he's
line, right?
driving. Give the guy a
Right, listen,
break.
I ordered the fishing line, and I got 3 reels of it. I had 3 miles. I got it to deliver it to my address, and I was away in the south of France working at the time. And by the time, and you know, I don't check my mailbox very often, and by the time I got back, which was like 12 days later, I opened the box and I found the what do you call it? The message saying, "Oh, you've got a parcel, pick it up, such and such," and it ran out of date, and they sent it back.
Oh,
They
God.
sent it back. But I was like, for fuck's sake, because well, I've still got the perfect place, but I haven't got back. I haven't, shall we say, got a stable address at the moment.
Oh, okay.
That as in I can use as my address. Well, I could use my mate's address. I just haven't got round to doing it again because I was that pissed off and disappointed because I've got mates and I had a boat. I've got a boat. I've got everything. I've got everything I need. I've got the people that are up for a laugh. They're not even flat earthers, but they'll come out for the crack. You know, have a smoke and we'll have a bonfire. You know, make it an event.
Sure.
But as I say, I just haven't. I need to wait till the summer. That was during the summer, and I've got beautiful water. You know, and little islands.
I swear, Ali, I'll come up if you tell me the date and there's no COVID shit. I'll come up for the weekend, bro. I swear to you.
Are you guys close to each other? I thought you were in...
No, I'm far away.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Canada and he's in...
Well, hey, SE, I'd chip in, brother. We could sort something out. I'd chip in a bit. Of course I would.
That's he's gonna drive his fucking.
If I can't get over there, you come across and we can sort something out. But
Oh,
if
I'd
that
love to,
COVID
bro.
I'm telling you, honestly, yeah, 100%.
For me,
you
it's
know,
more
it'd be good.
exciting to come over there, but we can do it either way, no problem.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome coming over here. See, I don't mind going across, but I've got it. Yeah. It'll be nice to have a flat earther doing an experiment with me, because the other 3, they're
We'll
ball
ring up
earthers.
Rumpus if I come up there. We'll ring up Rumpus.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we'll get him his theodolite. Yeah, man, great idea.
Maybe you can help him figure out how to tie some 2x4s down to the top of his car, so he can
That
go
will
out
help
to
him
his
load
test.
his car. Yeah.
Talk about something else. I've taken up enough time with this experiment. stuff.
All right. Well, I
other
didn't mind, but we've got a video that I found from Level Earth Observer. I'll show you this in a minute. Let me say hello to Flat Earth Data, who joined. What's up, Data?
Good day, guys. Good day.
What's up, man? And then
How you doing, Fly Off?
Bob Dole joined as well. What's up, Bob?
Hello.
And we heard SE on Montreal already, but what's going on, SE? What's new in the world?
Oh, everything's good. Everything's good. Today we were talking about COVID, and oh my God, these people are delusional. Maybe we can. I can post some stuff. We can talk about it later.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me bring this up right now. This is a video I just watched from Level Earth Observer on the Blue Origin. What is it called? Launch. That was, I guess, this past week. I didn't pay too much attention to it. But it was pretty interesting. You guys see it in Discord?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
He found this glitch. I won't play the whole thing, but I'll post the link in the YouTube chat so people can go and watch it if they want to. But it's real short, and what he has found is this glitch. Let me get it to the spot and see if you guys can notice it, because he starts it off.
Where should I be looking, Brandon? I can't see anything.
Sharing my screen in the Discord.
I'm in Discord now. So wait a minute, Dan, how did I do that?
You should see a SpaceX rocket on the screen taking off.
Ali, hover over Brandon's name.
Show channel.
It should.
I don't know. It's maybe my setups went wonky, because I usually have it. I can see you. I just click on it, and
Oh, it's not working. Okay.
I'll go to YouTube.
Yeah, you can watch on YouTube too. You'll just be a few seconds behind
I'll
us.
mute myself. Hang on.
So here's this Blue Origin rocket launch, right? You guys seen this rocket launch? Probably.
Yeah, it doesn't look real.
Yeah, well, here, let's see if you notice anything, because he picked up on something pretty interesting here. Let me hit play. Is it playing? Yeah, it's playing. Oh, this is the wrong spot. All right, here's where it starts. Now watch this thing. Anybody see anything?
It's kind of choppy on my end. I can't really make anything out.
Yeah, it's choppy.
Of course it's choppy shit. Is it choppy in YouTube? No, it looks pretty good in YouTube. Well, anyway, this thing is glitching out here. Let me show you a better picture. Here we go. This might be better. Do you see it now? Let me try to make it bigger. There we go. Now watch this thing glitch out. See it? See the top of it? You guys can't make it out at all. Probably not. Damn.
No, it's kind of tough, Brandon.
On the screen. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a bummer. I don't know how to fix that.
Yeah, your whole screen's like pixelated and shit, so I don't know. It might be my phone, or I don't know.
All right, let me try.
No, it's pixelated on my end too.
All right.
We're all glitching here.
Let me try one more thing, then I'll try to share just the application and see if that works. All right, is that any better? I'll hit play again. Is it playing?
I don't. It's just
frozen on my end. It's not playing.
Yeah, me too.
Now it's playing.
There we go.
Now it's
There we
playing.
go.
Okay, you can see it good now? Cool.
Yeah. What are we looking at? The top of the rocket?
The top of the rocket. Just watch the top of the rocket. It like completely glitches out. You see it?
Yeah, I mean, are they going to blame some kind of camera effect, or something with the rendering of the digital camera? I don't know what they're going to blame.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they are. Yeah. But
I've never been able to bring them one definitive piece of evidence where any space agency was lying.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
they
I
always
saw
have
it,
some kind
Brandon.
of
I saw
excuse.
it.
Yeah, we see that. Yeah. It glitches grab. Yeah.
That's a glitch, man. All right.
doesn't it look like a glitch?
That's CGI. That's CGI there for you. Look.
Look at that thing.
Yeah.
That's a bad one. Now, I'm sure they can say it's a digital artifact or whatever, you know, like Jeremy said, but I don't know, man.
You don't understand, Brandon, the effect of the gravity with the cloud, with the heat, and, you know, the radius of the Earth. You don't understand, bro.
It was refraction.
Yeah.
Yeah. After all that refraction.
It's a known phenomenon. It's well understood for hundreds of years. Yeah, the whole thing looks fake to me, though, to be honest with you. Like, if you just watch it, it looks like something out of an Iron Man movie. And what the hell? They shaped it like a giant penis, man. What is up with that?
Yeah, it's a dildo. It's a dildo. Dildos in space.
Pocket rocket.
I mean, they all look kind of like that shape, but this one's just so blatant, man. But this looks like something out of an Iron Man movie. I swear to God. Like, you look at this thing and it just screams fake.
Are they using the same fuel as NASA? Because they don't make as much smoke as NASA does. Like, no, there's less fires and shit like that, isn't there?
Oh, I have no idea what kind of... Look at that. Did you see that? Does that not look like a shot out of a frickin' Iron Man movie?
Yeah. The whole thing is based after him.
Oh, based off Iron Man. Yeah, you're right, man. What's his name? Elon Musk is,
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
It's all based on that movie. He's Iron Man in real life.
The flame coming out of the rocket doesn't look real.
No, it doesn't.
And they're working on the suit, by the way.
What are the odds they get a nice frame shot of that rocket blasting up there? What are the odds of that for cinematography purposes?
Oh my gosh, you couldn't have gotten it better, right? As far as if it was real.
It looks pretty cinematic and polished there.
What's taking the picture?
Yeah, good luck trying to do the take.
I don't know if they're using a drone. I'm sure that's what they're saying, that they have a drone or something. Maybe a helicopter. I don't know.
Kind of like when that satellite fell in Puerto Rico there. Remember that one, Brandon? Just happened to be a drone floating above there. You guys remember that one?
You
don't remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
Oh, man. We'll talk about it after.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you was this thing. Have you guys seen this thing land? I'm sure you have. But I'll bring it up real quick while we're on the subject. The landing looks really fake too.
Iron Man.
The whole thing looks totally cheesy. Let's see if I can find capsule with... Okay, yeah, here it is.
Do they use any wording, for legality purposes in the way they word the takeoff? They're like may or looks like or...
Oh, let's see. This is from space. I'd have to go to this official SpaceX launch, but that'd be an interesting to look at if they're using any weasel words.
It looks like a penis, doesn't it?
Yeah, you'd have to try to make it look more like a penis. Let's see if I can find where it lands. Here it comes. Can you guys still see it?
Where it's clean on one? Is this one where it's clean on one side and dirty on the other side or something?
Is it upside down or something? It looks upside down, bro.
It does. So
Houston, we have a problem.
It's still at 3,000 feet. Oh, there it goes. It fired. What happened?
No, it's not upside down, no.
Oh, we got a different angle here now. And now it's coming down.
Just out of curiosity, what do you think the physics of a smaller object with the same principles react in the atmosphere, like a cylinder tube falling to the ground? Do you think they could make a small scale model of this larger scale to show the physics of it?
Oh, shit. I don't think so. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Have you?
Well, that's what I mean. If they're doing these model types to land on Mars, they're all doing this smaller scale version and applying physics to the smaller scale version. Like in the helicopter they've got for Mars, supposedly landing on Mars, they're doing it in vacuum-controlled chambers to, you know, emulate the atmosphere on Mars, right? But they're doing it at smaller scale.
These guys,
Is there smaller scale of these rockets anywhere? I can't see any. I haven't seen any.
no,
So.
they're doing Ezekiel's, you know, wheel in the sky with this one. Infolding wings, and this is Ezekiel's wheel in the sky.
Ever try to balance a pool cue on your finger?
Oh yeah,
This is what they're doing here.
at hundreds of miles per hour. Yeah.
It's filmed so far away, like there's cameras all around the place. Show a close up of it landing.
That just looks fake to me, man. I mean, this thing's going from falling so fast.
It doesn't just look fake, it is. It looks so fake, it really is fake.
Oh, that's like a feather painted on the side of it? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
The
And on
inward
the launching pad,
wings of Ezekiel. This is the wheel in the sky, Ezekiel. This is just taking the old and making it new. The 4 feet on the ground, wings. Ezekiel described things as lions and bird wings and etc. They're doing Ezekiel.
They have to adjust for the
Ezekiel
Coriolis.
went up with one of the things. It's a joke.
I'm not
It's the
familiar
first
with
time
that
I
story.
see a
Jimbo.
feather on one of those things.
Yeah, I thought it was like a smudge on it, like got soot on it or something when I saw it before.
That's not the one I was talking about.
Yeah, I think I saw that one you were
Where the
talking about. But...
parachute lands.
Well,
Yeah,
if you want to
parachute
reference,
lands, they didn't land it vertically.
it's a former aerospace engineer, Joseph Blumrich, and he did a book trying to debunk, you know, Ezekiel and his encounters with spacecraft and whatever aliens you want to call them, but he couldn't. So while he was at NASA, he wrote a book. It was called The Spaceships of Ezekiel, and he was a full rabbi too. So he translated from this Ezekiel all these encounters with these flying ships, the creatures aboard them. And they were like this rocket coming down. They're doing Ezekiel. They're making a religion. They're just following an old story, making it theirs.
Yeah, I'll buy that. That they're making their own religion for sure. I mean, if they are doing this, this is amazing engineering. But I don't know, man. A lot of it looks very, very suspect.
Rockets are real, Brandon. Rockets are real, right? You're just discussing whether this is lipstick on a pig, essentially.
Yeah.
Rockets are real. Missiles are real. They have that tech. We know it, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just whether or not they're leaving Earth with it.
Exactly. Well, and they're doing stuff like this. I don't know. When I watch this video, it looks fake. Maybe it's because it's so new, but to be able to drop this thing from so high and then land it with one booster underneath that's pushing up, and then like that footage we looked at that glitched out, it just looks fake. It just screams, "This is fake" to me.
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, every engineer,
you just land it and like glide it in like the old shuttle used to do.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Any engineering, any kind of feat of engineering, always starts out with a smaller scale first, right? We look at any of the engineering big achievements; they always had smaller versions of it first, right? Model versions of it, test versions of it. Are you telling me that out of all this stuff here, we don't have rockets that are smaller versions of this where we can see the physics? It has to be this big, grandioso pocket rocket. It can't be just a simple physics, showing of physics with a simple scale model. Right? You have to go big or go home if it's a lie, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what they say. If you're gonna lie, tell a big lie and repeat it over and over again.
So why can't we see in modern days any scaled models showing these kind of physics of rockets? Why is it only this scale that we see? Ridiculous.
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, how much fuel would you need to overcome the 9.8 meters per second square? I feel like you need a lot of fucking fuel for that.
That's depending on the weight of your rocket, bro. So the shielding, the weight of the shielding is the issue, right? That's the issue with the weight of the rocket, is the shielding and how to propel it at a certain
Well, at least we got a burn mark in the ground. Huh.
Yeah, there's
I'm just
When
curious.
did you?
I'm just curious why they're not showing us the technology for, you know, they're showing these things, but like I said, if they have booster rockets that can do this large scale, where are the smaller ones at? Where's this tech at? Come on.
yeah.
You're doing it for Mars. You're doing it for Mars. They're showing you small scale technology for Mars. They even have things they're dropping that explode into some type of balloon they show you. But they're all small scale, right?
Oh yeah.
Crash car.
Now watch this thing come down as it nears the ground. It just looks unnatural. I don't know.
You can see dandruff all around it. Dandruff is like square staircase pixels.
I guess it is unnatural. But
It looks like you see out of Netflix, you know, a space movie or something.
yeah. And is this all just like a distraction so that they can test their new missiles? Because where is the weapons testing of missile and rocket technology going on? Has anybody heard anything about like, oh, the U.S. tested its new interballistic continental missile?
Have you looked at the Seoul Treaty yet? And have you noticed, or sorry, today, Russia just removed the Open Skies Treaty. They just got out of the Open Skies Treaty. So I'm sure these testings are going around. You're just not going to hear about it.
Yeah. You would think we would hear something about them.
The S
I don't know.
online buying. That's where they already have the missiles to launch and you know, what is it called? What's that mother of all bombs? What's it called?
Oh, the Moab, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So they already have this stuff. They already have all of it. They've had it for the last 30 years. And the guidance systems, all that stuff is just only gotten more accurate and longer distances, right? I think, 30 years ago they were having complaints that the rockets couldn't reach certain distances. I don't know if that was true.
Yeah.
I'd imagine now they don't have any issue with distance.
Your mic's a little low again tonight, Data. Let me see if I can turn you up a little bit. Okay, I'll try. We'll see how that works. I was watching something yesterday. It was a technical documentary, like 45 minutes long, on the M1 engine. No, F1. Whatever's in the Saturn V rocket. Is it the F1 engine? Holy crap!
You're talking about F1 racing. They use nitrogen compression.
Mic check. What's going on, everybody?
What's up, Matrix? No, I'm talking about in the Saturn V rocket.
I don't know anything about F1 and Formula Racing. You mean
this thing, Saturn F1, not racing. This is the.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
This is the video I was watching. It was crazy, but there's at one point in here. Let me see if I can find it. She talks about. Really interesting documentary. She talks about the cone on these things, on the boosters, and how it has this secondary expansion on it. And what the secondary expansion is for is when it gets to higher altitude so that it can keep its efficiency is the word she used, I believe. But so I asked a question in the comments. I'm like, do you mean thrust? Like, does it start to lose thrust because the gases spread out so quickly when you get up in the upper atmosphere or at altitude? And the answer I got back was yes. It's because that's why they have this outer ring here. Is when they get to high altitude, who knows how high up they're really going. It's the gases that they're expelling out of it spread so quickly they don't get as much thrust. Isn't that interesting? We're always talking about rockets in a vacuum, and I thought to myself, well, what does it matter? As long as they're shooting the mass out of the back, what is the big deal? Isn't it just Newton's third law? Why would it matter? You guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah, they disclose the actual nature of thrust to you, dispelling the idea that Newton's third law is all you need.
Right.
Or sorry, they're saying that they're saying that the inside and outside exchange of pressure to release, the release part is not causing the thrust or the acceleration. It's the pushing off of the inside.
Exactly.
Thereby saying that Newton's third law is existing in that realm, when we know in reality anything coming out at high velocity next to an atmosphere will make a resistance. So this gas that's coming out at high velocity will literally push against the atmosphere, giving a pounds per square inch of thrust. That pounds per square inch of thrust is what elevates the object into its elevation, right? So
yeah,
we know that by practical demonstration, but it won't work in space without an ad hoc explanation, and that's what they offer.
exactly. So that's when I got to thinking, well, okay, because the story's plausible. The story they give you about Newton's third law, it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Equal and opposite reaction. You know, the whole point is just to throw mass out, and then the rocket moves in the other direction. Okay, it doesn't really. It seems very counterintuitive and against, you know, my experience of how thrust works and squirting things out and making things go another way, how that works. But okay, but why would they light it on fire? Why wouldn't they just shoot out this fuel or whatever? The mass, if all that's important is the mass, why don't they just shoot out liquid fuel out the back? Why do they light it on fire?
You don't get any propulsion without combustion.
Because I'm Batman.
I mean, is that a stupid question? It sounds like a stupid question, but why would you have to light it on fire if it's just an exchange of mass, throwing mass away from you? What would it matter?
You have no sense of
probably
showmanship.
Because the expansion is probably because the expansion of energy is greater than just a massive.
Would you like an explanation?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
sure.
Rufus, fire no.
Is this done on Earth or in space, Brendan?
I can screen grab the
Well,
relevant page here.
on Earth, they fire this thing off from the surface of the Earth, so.
Can you see my...
Hey, Rumpus, I have a question for you.
Okay,
So,
let me...
if,
okay,
if,
hang on.
hold
hang
on.
on to
Before
my
you go on,
question.
hold on. Before you
I
go,
just want to finish
I want
answering this
to clarify. I know, but I want to clarify something before you go on. Are you saying that anything of high velocity coming out of any projectile, that high velocity fluid coming out, doesn't push against the atmosphere, causing resistance, and then therefore pushing off of the air?
No, it doesn't push off the atmosphere in any way, shape, or form. No, it's just like
it doesn't.
Just
Okay.
like,
Hold on.
Oh,
So you're telling me, So you're telling me that a high velocity of, let's say, 14,000 pounds per square inch, that coming out wouldn't blow back the atmosphere?
it wouldn't blow. You see, you use unscientific language because you know no science. You keep on using unscientific terms.
So that's all. That's your answer, and ad hom attack. Okay, can you try
Yeah.
answering the question again?
Well, because you speak in gibberish, it's very difficult for me to decode.
Okay, that's another ad hom attack. Can you try it again, Rumpus?
If the question was, when you say throw back the atmosphere, in other words, does it exert a pressure and displace the atmosphere? Then yes, it does do that.
So
Yes.
the atmosphere creates resistance, right?
Only because it's in direction you want to go. The air resistance, like firing a bullet.
So it creates resistance, right?
Just like a bullet does. Yeah, the bullet gets affected by air
No.
distance.
The velocity of the gas being expelled outward is going to have resistance against the atmosphere. You just said
That
no.
doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, right.
Hey, Rumpus.
Okay.
Let me.
Rumpus,
You got
I have
no
a
argument,
question
but-
for you before you.
Yeah.
Hold on, before Rumpus
Oh,
gets
God.
chased off. Rumpus, if I had the temperature, humidity, and pressure at two locations, and I wanted to know what was happening in between those two locations, is that good enough data to know, or would we need more? That's all.
When you say between, you mean in terms of the atmosphere's density and things. You mean
Well, I want to know what the light's doing in between, but
the
is
light?
it good
Oh, well,
enough?
you didn't mention light. You never. That's the first time you mentioned the word light. So in other words,
Refraction.
right? Okay, you didn't mention that word either. Okay, so you're talking
Yeah.
about a light, a laser beam, whatever, or just looking at light from an object that's say 2 miles away, and if you've got the density, the temperature and pressure over there, you're asking me, do I need, and I'm the observer over here. You're basically asking me, do I need to know the information of the temperature and pressure between the 2 points? Is that the question? To work out what's happening to the light.
If I'm looking from point A to point B, and I have the temperature, pressure, humidity at point A and at point B, is that good enough to know what the refraction is going to do? It is?
Yeah, providing is, it's not more than a few miles, then yes, fundamentally it is good enough. If you obviously you need the temperature and pressure for the same elevation, but yes, fundamentally that's good enough. In my experiment that I'm trying to do, I'm going to try and do a couple in between, but yes, fundamentally across horizontal thing, it doesn't change that much. So yes, if it's just a few miles or so, then it would be good enough to have a sensible discussion with that. Yes. So can I just mention this rocket thing, and then hopefully you can see
mention, I'll be pushing
see
a
it.
baby before you get anything done, Rumpus.
Oh Jesus Christ! Can you?
Robert, can I ask
Wait,
you?
hold on, guys. Let him answer my question, because I'm afraid he's going to get pissed off, and then we'll let Gadget, or this is going to blow up. So
yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah, but let's do it in order.
No, I just wanted to ask Robert where his manners is, because when you come into a room, you say hello.
Well, I just thought it was quite reasonable to say, would you like me to explain things? That seems to be quite a reasonable introduction.
Okay.
We don't need you to explain jack shit, brother.
Let's hear the explanation. Why do they?
Jesus Christ!
Why do they light it on fire, Rumpus?
Right. What? That's a very strange question. Then why do they use a rocket? In other words, what your question ultimately was a goodish one. That you looked at the video in which they were saying that as the rocket goes up at different altitudes, it becomes more or less efficient. That was your basic point. That's what you were repeating that point.
That's what I noticed. Yeah.
Right. So that is indeed a valid point. Rockets, the nozzle, the design of the nozzles is one of the most difficult parts to do of a rocket. It's obviously getting the things to combust. That's one thing. And then there's cooling. There's lots of complicated things. But one of the most complicated is shaping the nozzle. And as you can see, hopefully from this diagram, and I'm trying to get to scroll. Why won't that bloody thing scroll on the? So I can. Okay, well, let me. Right. So
we call it an orifice.
Jesus Christ, moron! Won't shut his gob.
He's not available right now.
Be quiet, moron. Right. So here we have a situation. What's called underexpanded, ambient, overexpanded, and grossly overexpanded. So this is related to the atmospheric pressure. Now you might not think this.
Sounds like my dick when it goes to the core.
Hold up. Let's hear this explanation, please. I want to hear what he has to say on this.
So, right now, there's something called the hydrostatic pressure of the exhaust. Now, although it's moving very quickly in this diagram from left to right and exerting a very great pressure, there's something called the hydrostatic pressure, which means how much it goes, how much the actual. It's a difficult concept and it's not easy to explain immediately, but the point is it determines whether or not the actual pressure, the static pressure as it's called, actually more correctly, if I were to stop the thing from moving, what would the pressure be? And that determines, who's banging away in the background? Right, so the hydrostatic pressure will determine how much it goes sideways, whether it goes sideways out or whether in fact the atmospheric pressure has a higher pressure, which means that the atmosphere will actually push inwards. And this changes with altitude because of the change in the pressure of the atmosphere. So the first one, Jesus Christ. So the first one is called overexpanded.
So Rumpus, you just said the pressure of the atmosphere.
I know, guys. Can you let me ask this question, please, guys? Because I understand where you're going. I want him to get the end of his thought, and then I'm going to ask him another question.
It's going to take about 20 seconds or so. Right. So what's called the hydrostatic pressure determines how much it's going to expand away from the flow. And so in the first one, the hydrostatic pressure is greater than the atmospheric pressure. That means it's going to shoot out to the side. Now imagine if this exhaust were to shoot out, imagine there was no pressure right here, it would shoot out to the side immediately. And that means and that would also happen earlier on, which means that the action, because remember, all this stuff coming out of the rocket is going in all sorts of directions, and the exhaust nozzle is actually directing it. But if it's shooting out the side, it's not, the Newton's third law is not going to apply to the stuff that's going out to the side. You're going to lose that. So what you want is this middle one, which is ambient. In other words, where the hydrostatic pressure of inside the exhaust is the same as the outside, and there's no movement side to side. This is a case here, the third one down, which is overexpanded, which means that the hydrostatic pressure, which is the non-moving pressure, is greater in the atmosphere than it is in the rocket. And unfortunately, because the pressure changes with altitude, you can't have one nozzle that does everything. If you want to go into space and use it in space, so you'll find the second and third stages, for instance, of Apollo, the nozzle is much narrower, the expansion is much less. Whereas this, so you have to go with a compromise. And so you want to avoid, you basically want the second one, but you can't get it. Anyway, so you want to avoid case one. It becomes less efficient as it goes higher up, but you need it to be that shape for it to work at ground level.
Okay,
I hope that made some sort of sense.
It did. Now, let me ask you this. So is it not just the expulsion of the mass that is moving the rocket forward, or is there something else that is going on here, some other kind of exchange of energy between these nozzles and the environment that is propelling the rocket forward?
No, it is just the mass. Remember, this is really, really heavy. It's just the mass. It's Newton's third law. And because this exhaust has mass, it's like firing lots of bullets. You can think of this as being like a machine gun firing out some very heavy bullets, and not only heavy, but incredibly fast. And so Newton's third law says, well, obviously this engine therefore will shoot to the left because you're effectively firing out bullets to the right.
Why do they light it on fire?
Well, because that makes it go faster. The speed with which the exhaust lives is directly proportional to the momentum that it creates, and therefore, the faster it goes out, the faster the more force it will exert.
Because it seems to me that by lighting it on fire and having this explosion directed behind you, that you are creating a pressure behind you that is propelling you forward. That's what seems intuitive to me. Is you're exploding this in the what is it called, the combustion chamber.
Oh, the nozzle. There's the nozzle on the combustion chamber.
You're directing that pressure out the back, and that pressure behind you is propelling you forward. Because obviously you have to move in one direction when you have all this unequal pressure, this positive pressure behind you. It's going to move you in one direction, right?
Yes, yes. You can think it's better to think of it in terms of momentum, which is mass times velocity. So if you think of each individual molecule of gas, it's being shot out to the right with its mass times its velocity. So the more mass, the more velocity it's got, the more force that will exert the other way. So yes, you can think of it as pressure, but that's not really the way you do the rocket calculations. Because the fact, if you want the hydrostatic pressure, that this second one down means that the pressure actually in the atmosphere and the hydrostatic pressure is actually the same.
Yeah, no,
that's what this means here.
I get to that, so that it's more directed. Right. Yeah, I understand that, but okay. So the reason you light it on fire is why?
You want to maximize the amount of pressure in the combustion chamber, because that means you've got more energy available to accelerate your mass out the back. And the easiest way of maximizing that pressure is to get it incredibly hot.
So you increase the velocity of the atoms and molecules if they're burning. If they've got more energy, kinetic energy, they're moving faster. So just like firing out a faster bullet from a gun will give you a bigger recoil. Similarly, with firing out, set it on fire, as you put it, which is just a reaction that causes the atoms to move faster, you get a bigger recoil.
But if there was no atmosphere, there would be no pressure. The gas would come out at high velocity and fill the available space, Rumpus.
Yeah, but that's because you don't understand Newton's third law. I tried to explain it very simply.
Again, another ad hom attack.
Yeah, another
ad hom attack.
I must have said this about.
So the object has a mass based on the object has pressure force depending on the velocity and mass.
Let me give you the explanation again. You didn't catch the explanation.
But yet, if it has nothing to resist against, how do you determine its pressure or its mass?
If you're listening to the explanation, you'll see your question is pointless. It's
if
like
you have nothing to offset it, how do you calculate it?
And I will explain it. If you just listen, I can explain.
Of course.
I can explain if you just listen.
If there's no pressure,
if you just listen for a moment,
nothing to push off of.
I will
explain
why that's irrelevant.
All right.
I will explain why that's irrelevant. Like with a gun, for instance, if you're firing a gun in a vacuum,
a gun is not firing out
a gun is in a chamber and has something to push off of.
Be
A
quiet.
gun is in a bullet's in a chamber, and it has something to push off of.
Be quiet. Be quiet. I'm trying to explain.
Another
If
ad
you
hoc
imagine firing a
explanation.
gun, imagine firing a gun in a vacuum chamber. Be
No,
quiet,
I
you
won't.
moron.
It doesn't have nothing to do with
Imagine
hot
firing
gases
a
coming out the
gun.
end.
Imagine firing a gun in a vacuum chamber. You still get a recoil. And as I said earlier, but
A
you
bullet
obviously
has
didn't
something to
listen.
push off of.
No, it doesn't.
A bullet has the casing to push off of inside of the chamber.
That's what the rocket is, you idiot.
The rocket is expelling gas out the other end,
Right, here we go.
putting pressure on the atmosphere, causing
and
thrust.
then you have a turn.
When you have thrust, you cause
Let me
lift.
finish my explanation, and then you get a turn next. So the way it works is like a machine gun in a vacuum, and if you're in a vacuum and you fire a machine gun, you would still get recoil. The mass is in the exhaust. It's just like lots of little bullets that are moving very, very quickly, and the recoil exerts on the engine here, the combustion chamber, which is part of the rocket. In the same way, a bullet, the gun recoil is a recoil on the rest of the receiver of your machine gun, and that goes backwards as well. It's no different. Finished.
So
now make your point.
It's got nothing to do with the pressure differential that this is creating that is thrusting it forward. It's just the mass.
Correct.
Why does that seem like bullshit to me?
Like a shot of nitrous.
Why does that seem like bullshit to me? I don't know.
Well, I just you do accept that in a vacuum chamber, if I fired a machine gun, I'd still get a recoil, don't you? You accept that?
So, Rumpus, in a vacuum chamber, what is the gun attached to? Is the gun sturdy on something?
No, that's the point. Imagine a gun.
The gun isn't sturdy anywhere. It's not held by something.
Imagine a gun on a table that's got wheels on it. And
so please show me how the gun. Please show me how the gun is like the rocket expelling gas.
Let me finish my goddamn sentence. Imagine a machine gun on a wheeled trolley, and I set it off, and it would then go backwards, pushing against the.
It's creating a pressure force. It has resistance and it has resistance.
It
and
would
then
do
it's
the same in a vacuum.
Of course, it has resistance. It's inside a chamber. That's its resistance.
What are you talking about?
If a bullet exploded inside of a vacuum, it would just go blah. It wouldn't move anywhere. It would go in all directions.
So you now hold on. So now you're making the claim that if I fired a machine gun in a vacuum chamber, there would be no recoil.
A bullet. See, with a bullet, you have it inside of a chamber. It has something to push off of. Right?
Yes, well, that's what this engine is.
So inside the chamber of the gun is like the atmosphere.
It's like the equivalent
inside
of the
gun. Inside the gun is like the atmosphere outside. It needs something to push off to cause pressures or cause acceleration. Right? Without the atmosphere, you don't have anything to push off of. So if there's no resistance. Listen, if there's no. Let me finish. If you're talking about pressure is caused by acceleration from a mass, right? Well, you need pressure. So without resistance, you get no pressure. So how do you develop pressure if you have no resistance? How do you do it?
You don't understand the difference between force and pressure for a start. And
okay.
Again.
Okay, hold on. Now another ad hoc. I don't know. Rumpus, the bullet is inside the chamber. It's pushing off of the pin.
You a crucial question related
or inside the shell.
And I'm about to ask you a crucial question related to the point. Do you believe that a machine gun or a bullet being fired in a gun in a vacuum chamber gives you recoil?
So here's the thing. Recoil is not what we're discussing. We're discussing.
That's how a rocket works on recoil.
We're discussing pressure.
Recoil.
We're discussing pressure, thrust, and velocity.
Rockets work on recoil, in effect.
You're saying a rocket works like a gun, but a rocket isn't a gun. It's an ad hoc explanation. It's an ad hoc explanation.
It's
an ad hoc explanation. I'll tell you why it's an ad hoc.
Like a machine gun.
Because it's not a gun. It's not a gun. It's a rocket expelling fluid at high velocity. That high velocity has to interact with something to cause pressure.
It's just like a machine gun.
So where is the pressure? Okay, you say it's just like a machine gun. Where is the pressure reacting to the velocity of the gas in space? Where is it?
The machine gun gets recoil.
Again, where is the pressure reacting to the rocket in space? Where is it?
There's no pressure involved.
Then how do you get thrust? How do you get thrust?
And I'm about to answer you. I was in the middle of giving the answer, but you interrupted me. Here we go. Here we go, moron.
You get thrust because of
Here we go,
recoil,
moron.
Rumpus?
Here we
You
go,
get
moron.
thrust because of recoil?
Here we go, moron.
You're
Newton's-
using a gun
Here
to
we
explain
go,
a
moron.
rocket.
Here we
And
go,
people
moron.
believe this shit?
Here we go, moron.
People believe this shit.
Here we
A
go,
bullet
you
is
moron.
being
You
confined
are a
inside of a
moron.
chamber
You are
that
a
has
moron.
something to push off of.
You are a
But yet a
moron.
rocket
You are a
doesn't
moron.
push off of the atmosphere.
You are a
I'm
moron.
sure this is
Rumpus,
fantastic
you
for the
are
audience to listen to,
clearly-
guys.
Not-
Maybe you guys could
He
just
won't let me make a
slow
single
down.
sentence out, will he? Right, it's like a machine gun, and Newton's third law
It's
says
not a machine gun, though.
will give you a
It's
recoil.
a rocket expelling
Will give you-
a mass
will
out
give
at
you
high
a
velocity. If it
Yes,
has nothing
and the
to
mass
push
is
off of,
effectively
then
lots
how
of
does
little
it create thrust?
Bullets
Newton's
come
third
out.
law,
Newton's third law.
resistance.
Newton's third law means that the momentum of the stuff you're throwing out the back will also be exerted on the thing and make it go forwards. That's why you have a recoil on a machine
And
gun,
that's
and that's why
again,
a rocket
that's
works.
false. That's false because in an atmosphere that you have any velocity or any mass coming out, it's going to create pressure. If you
So
take away the atmosphere, there's no pressure. Now here's the thing. The bullet is confined into a shell. The bullet is confined into a
in a
shell
vacuum chamber.
that has something to push
The
off of.
conclusion of what
It
you're
causes
saying is
pressure.
you don't think a
That
machine
pressure
gun
causes
would
movement.
give you recoil
You get it?
in a vacuum chamber.
The pressure
Do you
causes
believe
movement.
a machine gun in a vacuum chamber would give you recoil?
So first of all, it's not a
The yes
machine
or no
gun.
question.
It's
No,
not a
no,
machine gun.
let's start
What
from
causes the
let's start
recoil
from the first
is the
run.
pressure of
Let's
the bullet
start from
expelling the
first
gas
run.
from the
Let's see if we can get to a
explosion.
point of agreement. Let's
That's
see if we
where
can
the
get to a point
recoil
of
comes
agreement.
from.
Hold on,
That's
let's
it.
see if we can get to a point of agreement. Do you or do you not believe that you would get recoil from a machine gun in a vacuum
The
chamber? We
bullet
could- Now,
is
do you-
enclosed in a chamber.
So
As it
is the answer
explodes,
yes or no? So is
it
that
creates
yes or no?
pressure because the
So you
reaction
do accept that a gun
is being
in a vacuum
confined,
chamber.
but it has
So
nothing
is
to do
the
with
answer
space.
yes or no? Can you just
Has
tell me
nothing to
whether
do
or
with
not?
space. Listen,
just-
the gun
Can you just
bullet
try and
doesn't
give me
go
an answer to
off.
my question?
The gun doesn't go off
Brandon,
because
can you
it's in a
ask him?
vacuum.
Because I can't get him to answer this
The
question.
gun doesn't go off because of a
Brandon, can you
vacuum.
ask
All
him?
right.
The gun
Can you
goes
ask him?
off because of
Can you ask
an
him
Hold on,
enclosed
hold on,
chamber of
hold on, guys.
pressure.
Let's move
That's
this forward a
triggered.
little bit. Okay, let's move this
Just,
forward
can
a
you
little
ask
bit.
him my question,
W-
please, Brandon? Because he will not answer my question.
Let me kind of mediate on this for just a second. So, Data, what problem do you have with the machine gun analogy that he's using?
So basically, he's saying that outer space is like inside of a vacuum, and a chamber of a gun is how a rocket works. That is his argument. It's explanation. He's saying recoil in a vacuum, therefore acceleration of a rocket. It's an ad hoc explanation. When we know, in reality, any high velocity gas that has weight to it will produce a force. The atmosphere that it's being pushed against will cause resistance. This is observed in reality. You're using an ad hoc explanation of a gun and a chamber to say it works in space. Therefore, it works in space. Give me a break, dude.
Right, could I have my turn now? Do you believe that you would get recoil from a machine gun fired off in a vacuum chamber? Yes or no?
Why would it matter if it's in a vacuum chamber when the bullet is already in an enclosed chamber, you moron?
I'm asking you a question.
If the bullet is in an enclosed chamber and subjected to very close matter next to it, it will push off that matter, causing the kick.
Is it because it's
That's what
making
it does.
you realize you're a moron?
Hey, Rumpus, I think he
You have no
he
argument,
sounds like he
Rumpus.
has a point to me. So let me see what the point.
Yeah,
So
but I've been asking a question for 5 minutes now,
the
and he
firing
won't
pin.
answer it.
I understand. The firing pin strikes the bullet that's in the chamber. The gas explodes.
He strikes the cartridge.
The cartridge. Thank you. The cartridge. The powder explodes, creating a gas and pressure between the bullet and the cartridge, expelling the bullet out. And the same time, that pressure is pushing off of the bullet, pushing the gun back. Right? That's what creates the recoil.
Well, no, the recoil is the fact that there's pressure being exerted against the cartridge, and that's the same pressure pushing the bullet. So that's effectively how the momentum's being transferred. Every pressure that is used.
So there's two forces there, right? One against the chamber and one against the bullet out, right?
Can you just try and conduct yourself?
But here's the difference. Here's the difference. You're not putting out a bullet.
Can you
You're
please
capturing the air with the
finish a
gas.
sentence? I would like
You're
you to finish a
capturing
sentence.
the air with the gas.
You moron.
Right?
So,
the gas is pushing against the other gas.
Be quiet, you moron.
A bullet pushing against the air will do shit.
Be quiet, you moron.
So you've got a gas
if you look at this
between two solids, right? That's creating that.
That's what we've got here. You can think of it like this. And then you look at the pictures that I've got, and if you're still streaming here, we've got effectively the gas that's emerging. Say you've got a rocket, a bullet cartridge going off. You can think of this engine as being the cartridge, and the gas is going off on here, and it's pushing out. There's no bullet in effect. There's just the material of the combustible stuff inside the cartridge going out. There's no actual bullet mass, but effectively that still has mass.
Right. So instead of the bullet, what is that pressure pushing on then that's going out?
Nothing. There's a pressure exerted on the front. The pressure. Look, there's pressure inside all parts of this chamber, but there's a hole. Perhaps there's another diagram that would help.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying that pressure is pushing forward on this,
yes.
But it's also there's no pressure on the back because it's just being expelled out. So there's no pushing out the back. Why wouldn't there be pushing out when you've got all this pressure created behind that's directed out in one direction?
So I didn't understand that question.
So the red part, the exhaust, right?
Yeah. So the only thing that matters, the only thing that's going to drive the rocket forward is the forward pressure, because all the other bits cancel out. So, for instance, the pressure being exerted on the top of this chamber, my pointer is if you can see it, and the bottom, that cancels out. But as you correctly analyse, well done, Brandon, there's some hope for you yet, you observe that there's a pressure exerting on the front of this thing, and on the back it's nothing exerting on the chamber, because that is a big hole. So the pressure forcing it forwards is not being matched by an opposite pressure on the chamber. It's just going out. So this is just like a bullet going off without actually having an actual cartridge going off without the bullet being there.
It's nothing like a bullet.
It's exactly like it. And because this has mass,
not one bit. I'll tell you why. Because gas will interact with gas in the air.
You can have a turn in a second. You can have a turn in a second.
Through the gas.
Hold on, Data. You can have as much time as you want. Let him get his argument out, then you can have as much time as you want, Data. Go ahead.
So effectively, although it hasn't actually got a bullet there, the gas itself has mass. So you can either do it from the point of view you just did it with a pressure consideration, or you can think of that as a momentum consideration, and you can think of the gas having momentum going to the right, and that has to be matched by something else going to the left of equal and opposite momentum. Finished.
Okay, Data.
Okay, so Rumpus, let's say I had a bullet, and it was a big, large, flat bullet that I fired out.
Do you mean a cartridge?
Let me finish. Let's say I'm on Earth here. I'm on Earth here, and I fire a big, flat, round bullet. That flat bullet that's passing, that flat bullet is not aerodynamic. In fact, it's very flat and circular. If I fire that bullet out, hold on. If I fire that flat bullet out against the atmosphere, and I fire an aerodynamic. If I fire an aerodynamic bullet out, which bullet would go farther?
Who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how far this exhaust goes.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter whether this exhaust were to stop
the bullet
here
that's flat,
or go on
and not aerodynamic would have more resistance to the gas pressure that's being pushed against, right?
Providing it leaves.
According to Newton's law, Newton's third law.
Providing it leaves the chamber, it doesn't matter how far it goes. It's done its work.
I don't think you're getting my point.
As it's not in any contact with
any
the chamber,
projectile.
It cannot have any effect on this combustion.
Okay,
Rumpus, let him make his point.
He interrupted me originally.
Any projectile that you fire from any object will have to pass through the atmosphere. If the bullet is stop interrupting me. So we have two bullets.
What you do.
Let me finish.
You see how annoying it is when someone interrupts you all the time?
Why can't I finish?
It's really annoying because I'm
Come on.
Are you scared, Rumpus?
Are you
scared?
Let him make...
Are you scared, Rumpus? Are you scared?
Okay, great. Rumpus, point made. Now be quiet, please. Go ahead, Data.
So if you're firing two projectiles out into the atmosphere, one is aerodynamic, one is not. One will have more resistance to the gas pressure. So we know that from firing two different shaped bullets. We know that one bullet that's aerodynamic will travel farther than the flat bullet. Why is that? It's because the object or projectile has to pass through an atmosphere that has gas in it. So, let me finish.
He's not done.
Let me finish.
He's not done.
Okay.
So, the velocity of gas coming out of a rocket is 14,000 miles per hour. 14,000 miles per hour is the gas velocity coming out of a rocket. Okay? That gas is going to interact with the atmosphere and cause a pressure force against the atmosphere. What happens when a high velocity gas enters into the atmosphere? Does it cause pressure, yes or no, Rumpus?
Right, here we go. all that is completely irrelevant, because once this gas is left the chamber, it doesn't matter where it goes, whether or not it goes off into...
You have a nozzle.
Data, you gotta give him his chance to respond. Go ahead.
He didn't. He's not responding. He's not responding to the question.
Because the question is irrelevant, because it doesn't matter how
That's
far...
not responding to my question.
I am. Because
That's not responding to my question.
Because it doesn't matter.
Respond to my question.
Your
Again,
question is irrelevant.
if you have two bullets and both are different shapes, listen, if you have two bullets and they're two different shapes, Rumpus,
it's my turn to speak.
Will the aerodynamic bullet travel farther than the flat bullet? And why would that be?
It's my turn to speak.
You're not
It's because there's resistance in the atmosphere.
Once the gas has left the chamber and is no longer in contact with the chamber, it cannot have any effect. It wouldn't matter if the little bullets, we can think of this being, were flat, incredibly resistant to air resistance, or very aerodynamic. Once they've left the chamber, it's not in contact with this chamber anymore, so it cannot affect this chamber. The only thing that matters is that, as the way Brandon was thinking about it, is the fact that the pressure on the front of this thing is pushing it forward, and there's no opposite pressure. It doesn't matter how these things leave here, whether they're bullety shaped, flat shaped, or any other shaped. Once they've left the chamber,
what you're doing, Rumpus, is you're completely disregarding reality.
Any effect on the rocket. Finished.
Reality, in this world we live, we have resistance to wind. The faster my car goes, the more wind resistance picks up. This is
you're
common
worrying about
sense.
the exhaust. You're not worrying about the rocket.
Stop.
More hot air than a rocket.
It doesn't matter what happens to the exhaust.
If I am traveling in my vehicle and I put my hand out the window and I can feel the resistance of the wind, imagine my car is now traveling 14,000 miles an hour into the atmosphere. What would it do to my car, Rumpus?
Doesn't matter.
There you go. You're dealing with a moron, people. This guy is an absolute shill moron. You're disingenuous.
Newton's third law. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
I'm talking about Newton's third law right now. Every action causes a reaction. Well, if my car goes fucking faster, there's more resistance to the wind. It's fucking common sense, moron.
The resistance is out the exhaust. It's not in contact with the rocket. It doesn't matter.
You're just a disingenuous
You're too stupid to talk to. Yes, who was trying to talk to me?
You are the epitome of stupidity.
Rumpus, would you not need a something of substance to be able to have pressure to push off of?
You don't push off anything.
That's the definition of pressure.
Yeah, but it's not
pushing off.
Yes, it's right.
Not there,
hold on. What you need is another diagram, which is basically. I'll expand on what Brandon was saying. Let me get. Let me just grab this actually. Copy image, and I'll put it in my.
So basically, you are telling everybody here, Rumpus, is that you don't think that the air causes a resistance to push off them. That's what you're admitting to here.
No,
you're just a moron, dude.
It's just resistance to the front, stopping it from going
anything. Even if you have,
it's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant, dude. You are irrelevant in your conversation.
Right. So here, hopefully you can see this. I've copied that. Can you see that? Yes, I've got right. So here we have.
You're not sharing
engine.
it. You're not sharing the new thing, Rumpus.
Oh, bugger! Sorry.
That's right.
Okay, let me. Right. So
the fact that they're trying to get you to suspend your disbelief in it by giving you these ad hoc explanations of a gun in a vacuum,
right?
When in reality we know that anything traveling at high velocity in our atmosphere will have resistance to the air, causing a pressure change. That is something that's observable, repeatable, and testable. And yet we got Rumpus saying it doesn't matter.
So
how the fuck do these guys think they're going to get away with this shit any longer?
Why is it easy?
Right. So can you see? So can you see that the pressure? Can you see my arrow here in this engine here?
Yeah.
Right. Great. So as Brandon accurately observed, that there's a pressure all along here. The gas all along here is exerting a pressure. And we also have, let me just reverse this. Let me just create a new arrow and put it the other way. And reflect that. Right, so there's nothing on the container that the gas going out in this direction is exerting. Now we also have gas going up, pressure being exerted up here. Let me just make that a little bit smaller. Bloody thing. Right, so we've got gas pressure up there, and we've also got gas pressure coming down there. Oh, bloody thing! I thought I'd claim that.
We get the idea.
So, okay, so there we have. The gas pressure is exerting in all these directions because it's uniformly exerting in all the directions inside the chamber. I've only drawn 4, but it's also going off diagonally and everything. But all the other parts of this combustion chamber cancel out. So the pressure going up and down means that's all cancelling out. The one that doesn't cancel out is the pressure going forward against, because it's not pressing against the container. It's just going out. So it doesn't matter what happens to this gas. It doesn't matter where that meets resistance. The only air resistance that matters is the
I can't believe this guy is telling you guys this.
Be quiet, moron.
What's thrust?
And so the only air resistance that matters is the fact that this is moving this way, and there's a resistance in the atmosphere.
What's thrust and how is it created?
That's resisting.
Rumpus, you are repeating yourself. We understand. Can you answer Data's question? What is thrust?
He's behaving like an utter wanker.
What is thrust? And how is it created?
And how is it created?
Thrust is a force. We call thrust is just a force.
How is it created?
Well, it's caused in this particular. It's the pressure inside this chamber. We call the thrust the force exerted by. Because remember, pressure. Because he doesn't know this. The pressure times area is a force. So we actually want to know what the force is exerted on the forwards, and that's just simply equal to the pressure times the area in this chamber. Or actually, it's the area, because the bit that don't cancel out is actually the width of the throat here. So the actual force forwards will be the pressure in this throat here. Well, actually, there is a slight complication with the nozzle. I'm not going to go into that. That's very complicated. But let's just pretend it's the pressure in here that's not matched by a pressure over here. So there's no pressure on the container this way at this point of the throat. So the same area. So we can work out the force by saying, what's the pressure in this container, in the combustion chamber, times the area, and that will then give you the force forward. So that is your thrust.
So are you describing combustion is what you're doing? What? You described combustion, it's fine. Now,
literally, that's what he's been doing the whole fucking time, bro.
Yeah, exactly. The combustion energy that's coming out, does it create thrust?
Yes, of course it does. That's what I've got here.
Awesome. So how does it create thrust if it has nothing to push off of?
Because it's pushing on the front of the container here. Wait. So wait
a second. When they measure,
shut up! I've got 4 words.
Too funny, man. This guy's a comedy show time
Be quiet, you little twat. Be quiet, you little twat. Be quiet, you little twat. Be quiet, you little twat.
All right. All right. Hey guys, let's let. I think Flatsoid had some questions, guys.
I got 4 words into my sentence, and I want to finish it.
We get it. All right, hold on.
I want to finish my sentence, and then someone else
finish your
can have a
sentence,
go.
and then we.
Right.
I think Flatsoid had some questions.
So the pressure exerted on this part here, which matches the area here, exerts this force going forwards. That is the thrust. Finished.
Rumpus,
Yeah.
you would agree that it's easier to have thrust in a denser medium than a less dense medium, correct?
No.
There you go, guys.
Makes no difference. Makes no difference.
So you're going opposite of what you just said.
No, I didn't. Right, there's a pressure. Do you understand? In here, there is a pressure. Do you understand that? There is a big, stonking great pressure.
The pressure needs something to push off of.
Yes, and that's what it's doing, you moron. It's pressing on the inside of the container
and
the combustion chamber. Listen to what I'm telling you. This area around here, listen, and you may understand. This pressure, I've drawn these arrows where the pressure is exerting on the side of the container, and it's not doing it over here. It's not pressing on the container. Therefore, there is a net force.
We got it.
The left. He hasn't, though. That moron just asked me a question. Doesn't understand that, Brandon. You may have understood it so well.
We understand that it's impossible imaginary.
We're just interrogating your claim. That's all.
In this panel, you're top of the class of understanding.
He's just interrogating your claim, Rumpus. He's not asking you to repeat it. He's just interrogating what you're saying. So,
what he's asking me stupid questions. He made a claim that there wasn't anything to press upon. So he didn't understand. He didn't understand my explanation.
Rumpus, why are you getting so triggered just because I asked a simple question?
Well, because you then said what? I mean, I've explained this. I don't know. I mean, with Brandon as well. I must have said this about 8 times that the pressure on this part of the container is pushing it forward. And then you ask me and say, "Oh, look, you're contradicting yourself. There's nothing to press upon," even though I've stated that about 8 times.
Of course, there's something to press upon. Of course, there's something to press upon.
Right, but you just said there wasn't. You just said I'd said there wasn't. I'll say it for you again. The area around here is not matched by an area on the opposite side of the container. So there is a net force going to the left because there's a big hole on the right.
May I say
Yes,
that when you're
but
driving the car, well, let me speak. If you put your hands on the windscreen and push while the guy's on the accelerator, you'll go a bit faster because you're helping to push the car forward. That's what you're saying here with this gas and
Not
the
at
jet.
all, because you're then pushing against
You
the
are.
seat.
Yeah,
No,
you're
I'm
saying
not.
Rumpus,
the window
You're a
and
Rumpus,
moron if you think I'm saying
the
that.
motor can do the
Do you
work,
not
but
understand?
you're
So
helping it.
there's a symmetry about what you just described, where you're pushing on the windscreen will then put an equal force on the chair you're sitting in. But here there's a hole. The pressure that's in here is not exerting on the container. It's only exerted on the container on the left-hand side.
It's
for this
always
area
trying
here.
to
Rumpus,
escape. It's an
Rumpus, can I
open
deal with
volume.
that
It's
quickly?
trying to escape, so it doesn't want to have pressure in the foreground like you're depicting. It always
do
wants to escape.
you
Path of
understand
least
pressure?
resistance.
Do you understand there is pressure being
Yes,
exerted
I
in
do.
all directions in here?
You
Do you understand that?
Your pseudo-physics, and you
Do
want
you
to shove it down
understand
our throat,
the
and
pressure
we're
in
telling you to go to hell with
Do
it.
you
And
understand
you can't take it.
there's
We
pressure being
understand.
exerted in
You
all
don't want
directions in
to
here?
understand.
Do
That's
you
the big-
understand there is
You
pressure
don't
being exerted
understand.
in
We
all
All right.
directions?
So Flatsoid,
here?
you had a
Yeah.
question. We got that. So Flatsoid,
Yeah.
you had a question.
Okay. No, sorry, Rumpus. We understand pressure is exerted in all directions, but that
Great.
one that's going up the nozzle still needs to be pushed off of something. Just like an aircraft carrier. Why do you think they put up that wall for them to push off so they can get sooner? Because they get more pressure.
Right.
Understand?
But
It has to push off of a denser medium.
You can get effects with that light back pressure, but that's not relevant to this discussion. That's not what's
Yes,
used
it
in
is.
rockets. No,
You're
it's not.
saying it's not pushing off of everything when it
It's
comes out.
100% relevant, you
Oh.
No, it's
moron.
not relevant at all. No, it's not relevant.
Yes, it is.
Can you
Stop
see
it.
here?
Stop being a liar. Look, dude.
Can you see
You
here?
just make it really obvious
you
what you
see-
do when you talk like
Can
this,
you
man.
see that there is a net force on the container to the left in this diagram? Can you see that?
On a diagram.
You're not looking at my diagram.
Hell no, I can't see
Try
that.
looking
No.
at
Does your diagram
Oh, we
does your
cannot see
diagram
that,
account
Rumpus.
for air and the
Doesn't
pressure
need to.
exchange
Doesn't need
between something
Doesn't
being
need to.
thrusted against it?
Can whoever
Does it?
Flatsoid, can you see that in my diagram there is a net force on the container to the left? Can you see that?
It force right
I
through,
cannot.
yeah.
No.
You
The
can see
problem
there's a
is you
net
still
force
have
on the
air in the-
container to the left. Great. That's how a rocket works. There's a pressure in the combustion chamber. It doesn't press on anything on the right-hand side because there's a hole there,
That's false.
but it does
That's
press
false.
on the left-hand side, which is not matched by a counter pressure on the container. Therefore, it goes to the left.
Rumpus.
It doesn't matter what
So we
happens
have a
out
new
here.
definition
It
of how
doesn't
rockets
matter
work
what
from
happens
the
out
Rumpus.
here. That's not
We
going to
have the
affect
new
the
rocket
pressure.
science
Not
been
going to
presented
affect.
tonight.
That's not going to affect the pressure on the spot of the
Rumpus,
container here.
Thank you for the
Drive
new
forward.
rocket science, Rumpus.
Rumpus,
Thank you, thank you.
Rumpus,
I finally
work-
understand how
Rumpus,
rockets
I work
work.
with-
No, you don't. You're a
Rumpus, I work
moron.
with gas pressure.
Jimbo.
Rumpus, I work with gas
Absolute moron.
pressure every day of my life.
Well, then you don't.
Rumpus,
Well,
I
then you
work
should
with
have.
gas
Yeah.
pressure
Then
every day
why
of
am
my
I
life.
having to
think I
explain
know.
this to you then?
You know rocket science. No, it's
Why
understood.
am I having to explain this to you? If you work with
Work.
gas,
So I think
Rumpus.
Flatsoid is still asking questions and trying to.
Okay, but it's being
Rumpus.
over. Jimbo's just interrupting.
Right.
Go ahead, Flatsoid.
Okay. Rumpus, I work with gas pressure every day of my life. I think I know that it has to have a force exerted when it pushes out of a nozzle. It's
Good.
pushing against the air when you're pushing it out.
No, it's not.
If you don't have
That's
air to
not
push
how
it
it
out,
works.
you don't have.
Right. If I opened
Have
up
you ever opened a nozzle
gas,
into a
I
vacuum?
can give you an
Have
example
you
that
ever
will make
opened a
you
nozzle into a
understand.
vacuum?
If I have
Does
a
it do
gas,
pressure?
if I have a gas cylinder and I open up the hole on it in a vacuum chamber, do you think it will cause a recoil? It will actually exert pressure, and the cylinder would go one way.
Against the vacuum walls, yes.
No. If it was an infant-sized vacuum,
Then you wouldn't have any pressure going out. It wouldn't have anything to push off of.
exactly. So you don't understand what
The-
gas pressure is. Then you've just demonstrated you don't understand.
I just said I work
So
with gas
if you
pressure
look at this
every day of my
diagram,
life.
if you
Right?
look at
Then
this
I don't
diagram,
understand.
Flatsoid, if you look at this diagram, you should be able to see.
Your diagram is actually
Flatsoid, please.
validating what I'm
Flatsoid.
saying, Rumpus.
No,
Your
it's not.
diagram
Because
validates
if you
what
look
I'm
at the
something.
diagram, you would
You're just
understand
ignoring
why,
that there's-
if this was a vacuum out here, there's no need for it to push off. There's a pressure on the left-hand side that's a force to the left. There is no equivalent counter force on the right. Therefore, there's a
You're
net
talking about a
force
zero net
to the
force.
left. It doesn't matter whether there's a vacuum or air outside the
You're
this
talking about-
combustion chamber.
Yeah, you're talking about a zero net force, correct? Because it has no wind restriction. No aerodynamic restrictions.
Nothing
But
to do
that
with
doesn't-
aerodynamics. Can you not see that the area where the hole is in the combustion chamber here, there's a hole there? So the gas pressure does not exerting anything to the right. It's only exerting a pressure for the area. I mean, it's a little bit.
Of
There are
course, it's
bits that are
exerting it to the right.
How do we rewrote
Making a higher
It's not.
pressure.
Not on the
Making a higher
container.
pressure to
Your
escape.
Nobel Prize is
Making a
Not
higher
coming.
on the
pressure to
container,
escape, Rumpus.
Flatsoid. The area where the hole is, it's not exerting a pressure on the container. But it is on the left-hand
We
side.
got it.
therefore
You've
there's a
said that
net
It's
force.
so
making a
many
higher
times.
pressure.
But Brandon, this moron doesn't understand that.
No,
You've
I'm
understood
not a
it, which is
moron. You're
great.
the moron here.
But Brandon, you
It
need to
makes a high
explain that to your
pressure.
fellow panelists because you seem to be the only person who's
Well,
caught on to
I
this.
understand your
And therefore
argument.
I'm having to
Word
repeat,
for a second,
I'm
guys.
having to repeat this
Guys,
because you're the
guys,
only person who's
Rumpus, slow
understood it.
down, bro.
No,
Why are you
listen.
talking
Slow down
over
for a
us,
second.
Rumpus?
Guys, can I have a word, please?
The
Can
Rumpus
I have
has
a word, please?
All right,
so
go
much
ahead,
tonight.
Jeremy. You got a question for Flatsoid? Go ahead.
No, I don't have a question for Flatsoid. I just want to know if Rumpus told about the skateboard with the bowling ball yet. You know, if you're on a skateboard and you throw a bowling ball off,
Yeah.
you're gonna go one way and the bowling ball
Exactly.
is gonna go the other way.
That's how rockets work. Yeah, so effectively that's how rockets work. Yeah. Just like machine guns. Machine gun recoil is exactly the same thing.
Hi Rumpus, it's Mark Doxy speaking. Can I have you exclusively without anybody interrupting?
Hey, Mark.
Hiya.
Go for it, Mark.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. You mentioned about the recoil of a machine gun. Just go along with me here. Let's say we have a machine gun that weighs 10 kilograms, and the bullet weighs 10 grams, and we have a combustion chamber where the gunpowder is. And once that ignited, because there's a greater mass on one side and the other, the bullet will travel further than the machine gun, but both will want to go in opposite directions. Now, if we were able to now take the bullet away and just have the same amount of gunpowder in the machine gun and ignited that, would the machine gun recoil backwards?
It would recoil backwards.
Why?
Because of this exact same principle I've got here. Because it is still ejecting. I mean, it won't work quite as well as the bullet, but because the change of momentum is not so great. But nonetheless, it's the situation still as I've drawn it here, where when you fire off a bullet, even if there's no bullet there, there's just the powder, it exerts a pressure on the cartridge and thereby on the machine's receiver, the gun machine receiver as well, like this. So similarly, you have a non-net force. There's a net force to the left because there's a hole to the right. Now, it won't work quite so well without the bullet in there because you're not ejecting so much mass. But when you fire a blank, you still get a bit of a recoil. I mean, you're familiar with that, presumably.
Anyone that's ever
Hang on, please, no interruptions, please, folks. Just let me have Rumpus to myself. I'm being selfish here. Now, you mentioned about the machine gun being in a vacuum. Would we get a recoil if it was in a vacuum? No bullet, but the same amount of gunpowder.
You'd still have a recoil, yes.
I would like to see that demonstrated because I don't feel you would.
You would.
But you and I have never done that, so we can't give it.
I fired blanks. I fired blanks before. They're called. I fired them before. There is recoil in the gun firing blanks.
You've interrupted me. You should be able to see from this diagram that would be the case. That because there's a hole on the one side and not on the other, it means that it's effectively the cartridge. With the hole open, it will go to the left.
Okay. Even though this may be a calculated guess on your part, it's still a guess, though, isn't it? Because you've never done this.
No, it's not a guess. This is accepted. This is how rockets work, and this is how anybody who's got any understanding of physics and engineering knows that this is what will happen. It based following Newton's third law. It has to follow Newton's third law. If you're ejecting mass out one side, then the other thing, as you said correctly, that the conservation of momentum means that something to the left has to go the opposite direction. Now, if the mass on the right-hand side is less, then the thing on the left will not go as far. But if you fire this out really quickly, that will compensate for that. So if you fire a very small object very rapidly, you will still get a rapid, not as rapid as the thing going out, but you will still get a rapid of the thing that fired it. Go ahead, whoever, Flatsoid, whoever it was.
Okay, Rumpus. So you understand that in the gun barrel and stuff there is atmosphere. There's air inside the. Just like a rocket.
But it works in a vacuum as well.
Okay. Now, if you have to do that, then there's nothing in there because on your logic that you just said, you'll have less of recoil where there's no bullet, which is actually providing proof exactly what we're saying. You actually
no, because you still get recoil even without a bullet. You still get recoil
Yeah,
without a bullet.
But you get less recoil,
if you
like you
made,
said.
but you still get recoil without a bullet.
Right?
And
You get less recoil.
well, what determines whether or not you're going to get recoil, how much recoil you get, is the amount of mass that's ejected to the right. And if you can make that bigger, as in with a bullet, then you will get more recoil. Following Newton's third law, you will get more momentum going the other way.
Yeah, okay, Rumpus, so I said a bullet weighing 10 grams. If the bullet weighed 5 grams, would there be less recoil coming against the machine gun? Okay, so can you see where I'm going to go with this? If it's 2.5 grams, less again, and if there's nothing, then there'll be nothing. There'll be no recoil
because there's still the mass of the gases in the cartridge that are moving away. It will be less, but nonetheless, it doesn't go to zero because the mass of the ejected gas is not zero. Similarly, in a rocket, you just have the gas, which has lots and lots of mass. Remember, 90% of the Saturn V rocket is fuel, and that gets kicked out the back. And therefore, you're trying to imagine that. Imagine your bullets. 90% of the mass of the bullet or your cartridge was actually the fuel for the bullet. So imagine the cartridge was 10 times bigger with 10 times more gunpowder in it. Then you would get some idea that the bullet would become less and less important gradually. So I appreciate what you're trying to do. You're trying to say if you can make the bullet smaller and smaller, you're going to get less and less, but there'll be a minimum with a bullet. And if you make the cartridge bigger and you put more stuff in it, then the bullet mass will actually become less important.
Well, okay, Rumpus, as a friend, have you ever done this? Have you ever tested this?
No, I haven't, of course not.
No, and neither have I.
I don't need to. I can see the principle. Anybody, I mean, a 13-year-old doing a physics exam would get asked these sorts of questions and be able to get it right.
I know he'd be following what he's been taught by his physics teacher, though, wouldn't he?
Yes, and we know that works because we know that this technology works. We know that we can launch rockets and things. This is the principle with which rockets work. If you go to any website or any literature on rockets, this is how they explain it to you how it works. So this is how we managed, and we know it works because we've got rockets that work and they go into space. So we know this works. And I'm just relaying to you the principles that are used in all the rocket literature.
I'm going to leave it there, Rumpus. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you, Mark.
Question. You seem to be saying two things. So it's all about the mass ejection and the size of the mass, but you're also saying that it's all about the pressure on the front of the combustion chamber and the lack of pressure to the rear of the combustion chamber. Those seem to be two different principles that you're talking about there.
Well spotted, well spotted. I started to talk about the change of momentum. So, for instance, as the conservation of momentum means that mv, so where it's the mass of the rocket, well, actually we'll call it the mass of the gas. Make that subscript. Mg, the mass of the gas, is equal to the mass of the rocket. Make that little thing there. And this is the V of the. Sorry, that's a bloody subscript. Let's make this a bit bigger as well. So
you sound pretty sure of yourself with all this, like babble.
Just because it's just science. I know you're confused by science. Some of us aren't.
You're embarrassing.
But Jumbo, guys,
don't you see what rocketry. I love it.
The velocity of the gas.
Nobel prizes in the mail, my friend.
So here we are. Hold on. Let me just answer bloody. Let me just answer Brandon's point. Please. Now, that is the conservation momentum equation there, Brandon. That means that the mass of the gas ejected times its velocity is going to equal the mass of the rocket times its velocity. Now, because the mass of the gas is incredibly tiny, that number is very small, but this number is really, 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 really big. The mass of the rocket is obviously much, much bigger than the mass of the gas, but therefore the velocity of the rocket, because as it equals, got to be quite small in comparison.
Yep.
So
picture the guy on the skateboard.
So that's the conservation of momentum. This is the Newton's third law, the conservation of momentum. Now, if you remember at one point in your discussion, I used this as a start, and then you made the question about pressure. And you can then think of it as a different way. You can talk about forces. Rather than the conservation of momentum, you can start talking about forces. So well spotted that I was giving you two explanations.
Listen, the skateboard and the skateboard and the ball. The skateboard and the ball.
So the other explanation, as you seem to have picked up on, Brandon, is the fact there's a pressure exerted on the front and not on the back, and therefore there's a net force to the left. You can use either two of those ways of doing it, and you end up with the same answer. Go ahead, whoever's
picture you're the guy on the skateboard, and you got a bowling ball, and you just gently throw it off. You don't put a lot of force. You just throw it off a little bit.
Yeah,
you're not going to go as far
as
as
conservation of momentum. That's this equation up here.
Shut up, Rumpus. You're not going to go as far as if you really try to heave that bowling ball out away from you.
Correct. The faster you throw the bowling ball away,
Here's the problem, gentlemen. In
See, one will
space,
interrupt.
the ball won't have any weight, so you
Yeah,
won't be
I'm in the
pushing
middle.
off anything.
I'm in the
So
middle
there'll
of
be no
talking to
force, there'll be no
Flatzoid.
pressure.
I'm
The
talking
ball
to
in
Flatzoid.
space
Still has
will
mass,
not create any
Flatter.
pressure
Can I
resistance.
finish my conversation with the chap
It
who's
won't
asking
create
the
any
ball?
pressure resistance.
Right,
It will be in
Doesn't have to,
floaty
it's mass.
space.
Here we go. Can I please talk to the chap who's got on his skateboard? So, as you spotted that if you're in a vacuum chamber, for instance, and you're on a skateboard and you threw away a bowling ball, you would have a recoil and go in the opposite direction. That's exactly the same principles of recoil in a machine gun.
Except for you're applying pressure to the ball,
It's also the same.
and that's the only thing you can
for
apply
rockets.
to
It's
is
also
physical
the same
pressure,
principle of rockets.
but you
Nothing to
can't
do with the
apply gas
atmosphere.
pressure.
Would you like
What's
to
that got to do
respond
with
to
the
that?
atmosphere,
Whoever was
Flatter?
asking me the question, was it Flatzoid? Do you want to come back on my
No, I don't
explanation?
have any.
But do you understand the principle? You've correctly identified how rockets work. The bowling ball and skateboard analogy is exactly equivalent to how rockets work, except the bowling ball is incredibly massive because the 90% of a rocket, remember, is fuel that's kicked out the back at an incredible velocity because it's been set on fire, as Brandon put it. It's going with incredible velocity, and so you can think of you chuck lots and lots of bowling balls out the back of your if you're standing on a skateboard. Imagine you had a pile of bowling balls and you could eject them faster than the speed of sound. You would shoot forwards, and that's exactly how a rocket works.
How does a
Rumpus,
rocket move left and right in its trajectory, Rumpus?
In
How
the
does it
same
move
way
left
as
and right?
skateboard. Right, in the same way
How?
that Flatzoid described with skateboards and bowling balls. If you chuck a bowling ball out the back, you go forwards.
No, that wasn't my question.
Are they
that was not my
chucking bowling
question,
balls
Rumpus.
out the side?
What's the
How
same
does
principle?
a
Asking how they
rocket
go left and
move
right.
left or right?
Are they chucking
Well,
bowling
you can
balls
do-
out the side?
Oh, well, okay, you're talking about gimbling the nozzle, are you? You're saying if you can obviously change the angle of this thing, and therefore you can acquire different
So they
pressures.
change the angle of the. So that nozzle is pushing against something to change its direction.
Well, if this is not symmetrical, if what we've got here is not symmetrical, it's still obviously connected to the chamber, and you decide to make this top nozzle a different shape, that would mean you have a different pressure on one side that it would not be symmetrical, and therefore it would twist round the center of mass. Easy.
I think
So,
that was a
Rumpus,
very
you're
decent.
on
I
a
think that was an interesting
turn
question,
out
and I understand your argument about symmetry, but that does lend to the other side of the argument, Rumpus. And trust me, I understand your equation and what you're putting forward here. But if you move that nozzle and it moves you in different direction, it would seem that exhaust does play some part in thrusting you in one direction or another. It just it makes intuitive sense. So it's still going out the same hole. It's still got the same mass equation, but
right. Well, okay. Well, let me draw in that what he's describing. So imagine I'm now going to draw in a new. Oh God, it's still got a bloody arrow on it. Hold on.
Rumpus, I have a question for you. If we're going to use the explanation, I know, but it's pertaining to the symmetry. It's pertaining to the symmetry that you like.
I want to answer the previous question. So imagine you moved the nozzle to where it's now in purple. Perhaps I should make it more clear. Yes, make it like that. So then now I'm no longer able to. There is other effects now going on besides the pressure being here, because the pressure is also a pressure being exerted by this stuff here. Now, if I've moved that means, or if I make this shorter, for instance, or just angling will do. It means that I'm directing this pressure, so it's actually bouncing off. Remember, although I've got it coming out of here, it's actually going off in all directions. So the exhaust is coming out like this. And like that. Now, the reason I'm able to draw it in just a straight line is because that symmetry means all those different directions cancel out. But if you put an angle on here, then you're changing the way the exhaust is hitting the angle which is hitting the rest of the nozzle, and therefore you will create and of course the center of mass. This say is let's put the center of mass say here of the rocket. Then it will now twist around that center of mass because you've made this exhaust asymmetrical, and the molecules are now bouncing off them at different angles. I could go into that further, but hopefully that would be enough. If you accept there's any
symmetry, it's not going to make that a great deal of difference, I don't think.
Oh, it will make it a huge deal because the pressure, the forces on here are huge, and you just gimbal these nozzles, and therefore you can change the angle. That's how the V2 rocket. Well, actually, the V2 rockets, they worked in a slightly different way. They had a series of things here coming out the back. But these were attached to the rocket, of course, still. So there were still attachments to here. There's still bloody things on set on that. Damn you.
Can I say a demonstration or a test of this has ever been done, Rumpus? This particular theory that you're throwing out?
Well, all rockets rely on this. So every rocket you ever see launched relies on this principle. And we know that rockets work
Perhaps
with that.
so. But can I see an example of this ever being tested and refined?
Well, which bit do you want to see? The fact that
Any of it, actually. Any of it being actually tested and refined.
In a vacuum or in the atmosphere, bandsaw?
Well, preferably in a vacuum, Brandon. That'd be the preferable place, wouldn't it?
We've got videos of people setting off rockets in vacuums. Yeah, there are little rocket. There are people who've done videos on YouTube of little rockets in a vacuum.
No, I'm talking about an official test, Rumpers. I'm not talking about a wannabe YouTube star.
Right.
I'm talking about an official test, an official R&D on this theory that you're spruiking. Where is there any official testing and official evidence of this theory, these numbers, these pictures that you're placing in front of us at the moment?
All the rocket literature. Can I respond to his question, please? All the rocket literature you ever choose to read, if you go to any of the rocket sites, I've got a picture somewhere of a rocket actually being tested on the ground. I mean, showing you this issue of under expansion and expansion. Obviously, you can't have a massive rocket chamber and set off a full-size rocket. So a lot of their stuff, before they actually set off these rockets, they had to build them and test. That's why they used to explode and go wrong. And they then made them, and then when they got them to go up into space unmanned, they then said, right, that works. So any of the test firing...
You can scale this. You could scale this, couldn't you, Rumpus? Like, you wouldn't have to build a full-size one. Like, you don't build a full-size car right off the bat, do you? You build a model first and then you work your way up, don't you? One would presume that you would do exactly the same thing when you are developing rockets. You would start off on a small scale and then work your way up.
Have you not seen the test firings on the ground of these? There's an enormous thing. I come somewhere in Florida where they've got this thing that makes the loudest noise in the world, where they put these rockets into a concrete chamber and they fire them off onto a deflection plate. That's obviously not happening in a vacuum. So they test all these rockets before they ever send them into space, but they can't test the things into space until they actually get there. So what they do is they fire off one, and then once they've got it working.
Why wouldn't you test a smaller one, a smaller?
Oh, they do that as well. Well, because they've understood the principle.
Where are these smaller versions then? Where are these smaller versions?
Well, they understand the principles.
I'm not asking for a full-size Blue Origin rocket in a vacuum. I'm after a model size one in a vacuum that has been tested.
They don't bother to do that because they understand the principles that I'm describing.
Of course you would have to do it. Do you build brand spanking new cars without building a model first, Rumpus? Do you do that? Is that what you do?
Because they don't need to do that in a vacuum chamber because they know the difference between how things work in a vacuum and in fact, the only thing I have to worry about is this thing here about the gas pressure, the atmospheric pressure causing these encroachments or not, or overexpansion that cause problems. That's the only problem they have with the atmosphere. Otherwise, they can test everything else inside the atmosphere without having to go to a vacuum chamber and test them on the ground. So they don't need to do small versions.
I have a question. Rumpus, why do they have to adjust the nozzle if it has nothing to do with thrust of the exhaust? Why do they compress it at the higher they go?
Why do they change the shape of the nozzle, are you saying?
Why does
the angle of the nozzle? I can barely hear you.
Why does the nozzle get smaller and smaller the higher the rocket goes?
Well, normally you can't change the shape of the nozzle, but there are some, you become more, as you go up higher and higher, the pressure becomes less and you're in danger of this one happening.
Pressure becomes less.
In the atmosphere, yes. And so then you get this problem of you then get a problem of this happening, and you get a problem of this happening when you want that. And so what you have to do is you change the nozzle shape so that this happens.
Does it do what impact does that have if you have that top situation versus the middle situation? When you have that overpressure or underpressure situation, how does it change the thrust of the rocket?
Right. Okay. Now I've drawn this just as one arrow, but remember all this stuff is going around in all directions, and I've drawn the net force. But actually, of course, when all the atoms in here are shooting around, where I told you about the hydrostatic pressure, there are molecules and things moving in this direction. But if they meet atmosphere at the same pressure, the hydrostatic pressure, I know this is a very difficult concept to think because you've got this enormous pressure going left to right, but what will determine whether it goes up or down is the what's called the hydrostatic pressure. That's independent of the motion. And if you have it going up there, it means you've lost a little bit that you could be directing. If it's not at the same pressure as the atmosphere, so when it comes out here, then it means that as it leaves the tip here, it's not going to the right. So in other words, you're going to get some molecules that are going up this way rather than going like that. Now that means that the tip. So this is actually a very complicated thing, Brian. You've touched on quite a complicated subject. It means you effectively do not have the net force going to the right. That's when in this situation there is when it's left that it's going. In other words, when it leaves the tip of the nozzle, the stuff is going directly to the right. If it's got a partial motion going up, that means that it's not.
What does it matter? It doesn't have anything to do with propelling the rocket. So what difference does it make?
It's the bit here that counts, where it leaves the nozzle at this particular point. Remember, the pressure it's exerting on here is dependent on its direction of leaving. So if it's leaving this tip of the nozzle, because after that point it can't do anything. Once you've lost contact with the nozzle, as I've been trying to explain, that's why I'm validating all these things about the atmosphere. It can't have any effect on the chamber, because it's not. Once it's left the chamber, going past the nozzle, it can't have any force on the combustion chamber. But if it leaves it at this angle, it means that the tip of the nozzle, it's not pushing it just left to right. Part of the velocity of the stuff at the edge is going in this direction, which means it's only 45 degrees, which means that the tip around the edges. What does
that matter? It's past the nozzle. Who cares? It's already expelled.
I'm talking about the bit that's just. I'm talking about the bit just on the nozzle.
I know, but it's already expelled out. What does it matter? You've already got the pressure on the front. What difference does it make?
Well, because you then end up with asymmetries.
Still pushing on the nozzle.
Right. Look, because the net effect. Oh God. Right. If it, for instance, we are relying on the fact that the net exhaust from here, which we can model with what's going on in the throat, carries on in a net direction to the right. Now, if it starts going up, or it starts to do things like this, where the atmosphere comes in, then you can't then draw these arrows just to the right, and then it becomes a more complicated equation than the one that I was describing earlier, which I was doing in a simplified form to try and avoid some of the complications.
You've still got the same net, the same net though. It doesn't matter what shape it is. You've still got the same net.
Yeah, but the thing is, if the actual hydrostatic pressure is less, and you get force coming in from the atmosphere, it works less well in the atmosphere. Because if the atmospheric pressure is greater here, that actually means that's exerting a force in the opposite direction. It's preventing the exhaust gases getting out, and that in fact causes a net force. It means that the force, the exhaust gases which are trying to get out here, are then met by a force that's going to cause them to be reduced, which means that if you think of it, there's a chain of effects. I mean, if you want me to do a presentation on this, I could.
Okay.
But it's really complicated.
So it's creating some kind of back pressure. It's reducing the.
You can think of it like
throughput.
a back pressure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can think of it like.
All you're doing is describing how a jet boat works. How a jet boat nozzle works. It's exactly the same how a jet boat nozzle works. Exactly the same.
Yeah. That's right.
Exactly the same, right?
And it does it by throwing out water.
Exactly. So a jet boat needs something to push it. It doesn't.
Against. No, it doesn't.
100%. It needs the water. It needs the water to push it against. 100% it does. 100% it does. It uses the water at the back to push against the water that is laying. That's 100% how it works.
Put it like this. Okay, how about this? Then? If I put a jet boat on a table, hold on. If I put a jet boat on a table and I just fed water into the intake, it would still shoot forward, even without being in the water. Right.
Exactly.
So it's not using pressure on the water. Then
why does it do it? Why does it do that, Rumpus?
Newton's third law. Just like the skateboard and the bowling ball.
Pushing against Rumpus.
No, it's not pushing against. You just agreed with me. If you took it out of the water and I fed.
Wait a minute.
It was on a table.
How would water create the forward pressure that you're describing because of the explosion in the combustion chamber? How would water going through the jet create that forward pressure, Rumpus?
Here we go. Let me draw a boat. Right. So here we have a boat.
Rumpus, are you saying it
There's ram bank.
Hydrostatic
Here we have a
equilibrium.
boat, and here we have its jet water intake here. So let's suppose.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Bandit, but
you're right, buddy.
It seems like a.
Right, now imagine it carried its own water.
It's the same thing, though, Bandit.
Here we go.
What he's describing.
So here we go. So there's the water, and here I've got down below is the jet intake up into the front.
Okay.
And imagine there's a pipe going from there. Oh, why is that not bloody?
What the hell have you drawn, Rumpus? What the hell have you drawn?
Right. So here we have the pipe from the. Bloody thing. Here we have the pipe from the water. So this is our water reservoir.
Okay.
This is the water reservoir here in the. Here's the water reservoir. You're a twat, aren't you? Yeah. And here's the boat. And here's you're a twat. Yeah, you are.
The water reservoir.
You're a stupid little twat, aren't you? Yeah, you're a stupid little twat, aren't you? Yeah, you're so stupid. You can't understand something. You'll understand. Yeah,
you are priceless. You are so precious, Rumpus.
You're right. So there's my boat. I'm going to try and cite my boat shape because he's having a problem with it.
Good enough.
Make a new channel in Discord.
So here we go. So there's our water reservoir going into our jet intake. And then we have, so now here's our little pump thing, the purple thing, and it shoots water out the back. Like this. Now imagine this was standing on a table or on some rollers. Let's put it on a nice, and let's imagine there's some wheels on this thing.
Let's put it on an ice rink.
Oh, an ice rink would do,
So
yeah.
you actually just...
Right, so here we go. So if you were to set this up, then this thing would shoot to the left to do this. It doesn't need any water to press on here. It would actually work better, I suspect, without having to have water interfering with things.
You're having an Einsteinian moment here.
Right. So this is the same principle as the skateboard and the bowling ball.
What is the equivalent? What is the equivalent of the pressure towards the front of the combustion engine in the water jet boat skateboard thing?
That's a bit more tricky. This is more of a conservation momentum model. Yes, I'd have to think
so
about
that pressure isn't required in this one. Then it's just
exactly.
How would the
is that water hitting the table
it's
and the air?
conflating the two.
The pressure inside the compressor is similar.
I think that's what it would be, because there would be a pressure. Indeed, the compressor would be. There would be a pressure inside the compressor, which would be relieved by the stuff. I'd have to think about it. As the guy said about the compressor, it's absolutely right. This does generate a pressure on the water. Yeah. So right here we go. Yes, he's absolutely right. So there's a rotating.
Of course, we are.
Yeah, so there's a rotating thing in here, a impeller or a propeller in here, and that applies a force to the stuff to make it go out to the right, which means that water that's going out to the right is exerting, using Newton's equal and opposite thing, exerting the same pressure on the propeller in the opposite direction. But because the water's being ejected, and just like this example up here, you can think of there being a propeller in here, you can think of a propeller being here, the force the propeller exerts on the water through Newton's equal and opposite reaction also is exerted on it. But because the water is ejected to the right and is not contained by anything, we can think out exactly the same situation where we've got the pressure, just like that rocket engine thing, directed to the left, and there's no equivalent to the right because we've ejected it. There's effectively a hole here, just like a rocket, and the pressure that's exerted by the propeller is exactly the same.
Right.
So in this situation,
So it's pushing where Rumpus? Where's it pushing?
Where's it pushing against the boat? Where's it pushing against the boat?
The propeller in here. There's a little propeller in here which exerts a force on the water, and the water exerts a force on it. You're following Newton's equal and opposite reaction. But because
how is it pushing against the boat?
Because this motor is attached to the boat.
Of course, it's attached to the boat. But how is it pushing against the boat?
Force exerted on the propeller.
Right.
That has to be
pushing off the water.
Using the fittings
So
there
it's
on the
pushing
boat.
off the water.
Oh my God!
Motor's attached
The
to
water's
the boat.
being ejected from the boat. It's the conservation of momentum again.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, they didn't like that conservation momentum argument. That's what.
If the water is pushing against nothing,
It doesn't have to push against any water.
Why
The water's
is
pushing against the
water
boat.
ejected at the back to thrust it? Why isn't
pressure,
the water
fellas.
directed towards the boat to push it along?
Right.
Why does the water have to get directed at the back?
Okay,
Why
here
does
we
it have to
go.
get directed at? If the water is pushing against the boat, Rumpus, why does the exhaust or the water have to come out the rear? Why can't it go up the top or out the side? Why does it have to come out the
I'll
back?
explain to you. If you let me answer, the conservation momentum says if you've got something shooting out the back with a mass and a velocity, you've got to have conservation momentum. The same amount of momentum has to go forwards. That is the conservation momentum.
So opposite and equal reaction,
Equal
right?
option reaction, yeah.
A reaction has a reaction. All right.
That's right. So pressure equals force, right? If you have no pressure, then you have no force.
So I'm just trying
exactly.
So can you build that water pump skateboard for us and show us it in action, Rumpus? Really appreciate that.
Well, actually, this is what this water pump skateboard is. Yeah, So this is exactly the same principle as the skateboard and the bowling ball thing, except the difference is the water becomes the bowling.
Skateboard and the bowling ball
exactly
ball
the same.
ad hoc
The
explanation. I'll
mass
tell you
of the
why.
water
It's
is
because
effectively
both objects,
you can think of it as like being ejecting lots of little bowling balls out the back.
Yeah.
You can think of this as like ejecting little bowling balls out of the
We
back.
get the theory and the math. We get the theory and the
Brilliant.
math.
You seem to be one of the few people understanding this, Brandon. The others seem to be unbelievably stupid, but you're actually catching on to a lot of this. So well done. So this is so you could build this.
Rumpus, you're saying what we're saying the whole time.
No, you're not. You're arguing with me, so you can't understand it. It's not pushing against the water, is it? It's not pushing against anything outside it, like you and Flat Earth Data are claiming.
So there's not
it's just the fact that it's just the fact this lump of water is going in this way, and it causes the conservation measure says that the boat must go the other way. You have not been agreeing with that. You've been talking about the pressure exerted on this water on the outside. You've not been agreeing with me at all.
Rumpus, if you have to push that nozzle down towards the ground, would you have more speed than just having it shooting through the air?
That's what it looked like posted in general.
So what do you want me to do?
He's saying is if you directed the nozzle, the exhaust, the water exhaust, yeah, would it go faster?
No,
look what I posted in general. This is a flyboard. It's basically a jet ski going up.
Yes, one of those. Yeah, exactly. That demonstrates. Yes, that demonstrates it exactly. Yes, well done, whoever that is, making lots of intelligent comments.
Oh, don't get carried away there. We know who that is.
Someone's made 2 intelligent comments on here, and they've posted those on those things. That's a very good point. That's exactly how. Yeah, one of those. Exactly. Well done, Paid Nasa Shill. Yeah,
well, I had a girlfriend. Her name was pretty close to jet ski.
So there we go. So that demonstrates it exactly. What I've been talking about. Thank you, Paid Shill.
So you're pushing a dense medium out, and it's propelling you,
how.
correct?
So it's just the matter. So it wouldn't matter if this was a vacuum. It'd still have exactly the same principle. It's the water leaving it that counts. It doesn't matter what it does. What happens once it's left the containers, not touching any part of the thing. It doesn't matter what it gets up to. It could go shooting off into space. Doesn't matter, providing it's left the thing. And the conservation momentum then applies, and then you go in the opposite direction. It's really simple.
This thing on Paid Nasa Shill goes against what you just said, by the way.
No, it doesn't. It completely agrees with me. It completely, 100% agrees with me. This is exactly equivalent what he's drawn here to what I've drawn. He's got exactly what I've drawn. He's got exactly what I've drawn, except the water in his thing is coming down this tube, and on mine, it's coming from a water reservoir. That's the only difference between our 2 diagrams.
Have you ever sprayed a hose against a wall? Like you go right up to the wall and spray it against the wall? Why does it give you? Why does it push back on you more the closer you are to the wall?
No, it doesn't.
It does.
It does.
No, not.
Why do you think? Why do you think the firemen have to have more?
Because you're building more pressure in the water.
Why do you think firemen usually? Why do you think is the pressure coming out of firemen's hose, Rumpus? Why do you think you usually need more than one person usually holding a hose?
Because
exactly the same thing. Thank you, Bloodsoy. Prove it again.
Exactly. Conservation momentum.
Because
the same thing.
Conservation momentum.
Because
Thank
it's pushing off. Why? Where's
pushing
it
off of what? Pushing off of what?
If you fire into the air, it's not pushing off anything.
It's pushing you down if you're pushing it up.
Yeah, because the conservation momentum has got nothing to do with what it's pushing against in the air.
You just said when it leaves, it's not doing anything on you.
Yeah, exactly. So once it's left the nozzle, it's not doing. That's it. It's done its job. You are then going to be conservation momentum means that you will be pushed backwards. Once what it gets up to after that is up to it. Doesn't have any effect on anything.
You just said it does, now it doesn't.
No, I haven't.
How does
It doesn't have any effect. Once it's left the nozzle, it cannot have any bearing on what you then do. But I mean, you seem to be confused. I think you're getting confused by the angle thing here. I think that's possibly what you're getting confused about. You're saying, because I've been showing this angle thing here, but the direction it leaves the nozzle is important. But once it's left the nozzle, then that's the end of it. It doesn't matter if it's not going to wiggle around like crazy. But if it did, it wouldn't make any difference if this line that I've got here, this thing here, and it went like this.
So,
it wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't do that. But it wouldn't make any difference to what happens here.
Rumpus, this comes back to my point earlier on the aircraft carriers. So once it's left the nozzle and hits that barrier wall that they get, it does nothing.
If the water splashed back, I mean, okay, if you put a barrier here, then imagine if you put a barrier here, then the water could bounce off that and then come back and hit the boat, and that would cause a different
effect. The water
effect.
disperses, doesn't hit back at you, and it still
Well, if
pushes you away.
it bounced off, yeah, but you talked about a barrier on a bloody aircraft carrier. If you have a barrier like this, then you would, if you're firing out a rocket, then the air's going to hit this, and then it's going to bounce back. Now, so providing there's nothing to bounce back off, that would cause it, but that's because nothing to do with this bit of it here is to do with then the water going from here to here.
Sorry,
so it's a separate,
are you saying the air that's bouncing back? Are you saying
yes, it bounces back. So if you're on an aircraft carrier and you put up something here, then the air will hit this and then bounce back and then bounce and hit the aircraft.
Sorry,
so you will get some extra pressure.
Are you saying that air that comes back is going to overcome that pressure coming out of the nozzle?
No, it's hitting another part of the aircraft.
Then how's it coming and hitting you?
It's not going back into the nozzle. It's not going back into the nozzle. It's going back. Well, I suppose actually it could. I suppose part of it will do that. But the point is, the air that moves in this direction from right to left will add an extra force, and of course that means that force is acting on the aircraft carrier. It'll apply a force to the carrier in this direction, and let's change the color. But any extra force that the wind goes back in this direction will add extra force, and if that hits back on the area, it doesn't really matter where it hits. This stuff going in this direction. So, let me change that.
Yes, so we got the point. Let's talk about something else. Yeah, we all know how rockets work.
No, they don't. They clearly, most of the people here don't understand how rockets work. They don't understand a skateboard and a bowling ball as an analogy. They don't understand. They were claiming that this water thing I've drawn here on a skateboard is not the same as Paige Schill's jet flight thing. They don't understand this is analogous to a machine.
Okay, all right. We don't need a rundown of what we don't understand. So you said that when NASA Shell said that when I hold the hose against the wall and it exerts more, there's more pressure, right? Wouldn't that same fundamental apply if I have the mass or the exhaust coming out the back and it's hitting an atmosphere as opposed to hitting a vacuum? So the more pressure that is pushing back from the outside, the more force I'm going to get, correct? Because that's what the wall example was when Paige Nash said it creates more pressure.
No, it doesn't. No,
he said that.
Well, he said that. I don't think I'd agree with him there.
Hey, Paige NASA Shield, does it create more pressure? You get, when I did my example of the hose against the wall, you said it creates more pressure.
That was my first impression. I may be incorrect.
Well, that's our whole argument. That's our entire argument, and you just kind of that was your first impression too. Isn't that interesting?
Okay, so maybe it helps slightly. I don't know. I have to look into it. It's not necessary, is the point.
It's not necessary, but there is some impact because it does indeed
because there's a
push more.
If you look at rockets going up, you can see the plume expand as it goes up. Because
that's what this is. Yeah, that's what this. Here we go. This is
right. We talked about that. That was what brought this entire subject up.
In the atmosphere,
they're less efficient at higher altitude, and that's why they restrict the output more. That's why they have that extra restrictive band on the F1 engines on the Saturn V, because they lost efficiency as they got up in the altitude, which tells me that the exhaust plays a major role in the efficiency and the thrust of the rocket, right?
Only at the point of how does the gas leave the edge of the nozzle? That's the only effect that it has.
Do you see where we're coming from on this one, though, Rumpus? How one might get the impression.
Yeah, I do get that, and you've asked an intelligent question about why the shape. I'll finish answering Brandon. I'm answering Brandon's point. Will you be quiet? And then you can speak in 20 seconds, and I'll just finish. Be quiet, you little rude, little obnoxious twat. So yes, so Brandon.
All right, let him finish. Let him finish answer. I did ask him a question, Data. I did ask him a question. Go ahead.
What a little obnoxious twat that guy's. Utterly rude. I wonder if he behaves like this in real life. So, yes, you're absolutely right. There is a very complicated issue, and it is to do with leaving this. And I could go into... I mean, we could perhaps have a proper analysis of this. It is an issue, and you're right to think, why is this happening? So that is an intelligent question, and it is all to do with hydrostatic pressure. So, unless you want me to go on, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. So the thrust does play a part then. The
shape, the way this what we call this expansion does affect the efficiency.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Why is it imperative that the exhaust nozzles are pointed at a certain degree? What happens if they're off by a degree? What happens to the exhaust of the rocket?
You mean to say if you then have an angled thing, as we were talking about wherever it was, I had it.
Why are the rockets angled the way they are? And if they're outside of
which
the
angle are you
alignment of
talking about? Are you talking about the angle of the nozzle? Or are you talking about the shape of the nozzle? Or the fact that it's not symmetrical?
The exhaust angle of the three nozzles that come out of the rocket. If the angles are changed, what happens to the rocket?
It will steer. It won't go straight.
It won't go straight. Thank you.
It'll bend. Yeah, curve. Yeah, right, great. Fine.
Why is that if it doesn't push off the atmosphere?
Because you've directed, instead of it coming out straight like this, you've then directed this thing like this. In other words, the bouncing off it's not a symmetrical bouncing off these parts of the thing. You're getting an asymmetrical in terms of where the symmetry is. If you change the angle of this, it means you're going to get, when these atoms are all bouncing off in different directions, they will not form a clean net force to the right. They'll be slightly directed, in this case where I've drawn it here, they'll be slightly directed upwards because they'll hit the container, hit the nozzle, which is part of the rocket, and they will not go off at a net direction to the right. You'll have steered them by changing this angle. So for instance, imagine this. If I were to change this shape here and I were to do this to it, so let's suppose I did this.
But if it's left already, it has nothing on.
Hold on. Yeah, but hold on. If I then did this, so the rocket went up like that. Now, the forces that were coming out here, bloody go away. So then, imagine if you did that. The net force would bounce off the edge of the. So now we've extended the nozzle, and now we've introduced. And now imagine it went up here. Let's get this going right angle. Right, so now we would have exerted forces. There would now be something opposite this throat here. So that would then, you would nullify the left to right action. And now, in effect, because the pressure, you've then got effectively the pressure being exerted on this area here, round here. It's effectively where, oh, you bastard thing, stop bloody doing that to me. So this thing here, there's an area around here now, which I'll put in some different color, which is no longer matched by the hole. So it's got to be opposite the hole. And so then this would spin round, because the center of the mass of this rocket is where the star is, it would just spin around the center of mass and exerting a force in this direction. So you can change the direction with which the thrust has occurred if you then change where effectively the hole is. And if you extend the container nozzle round here and there's no longer able to eject out that way, you can then change where the direction of the flow is. So that's why it's important that the nozzle is symmetrical and pointing along the center of mass. Finished.
So how much of a part does the fact that the rocket is in the atmosphere and there's this hydrostatic pressure to worry about, and there is something that the exhaust is pushing back on the exhaust as it exits the rocket nozzle, as opposed to in a vacuum. Okay. There is a difference in the atmosphere of the force that's pushing back as opposed to, say, in the near vacuum of space. How much effect does it have? Because they talk about efficiency loss. Does it go from 100% efficiency down to 50, down to 20, down to 10?
No, I think this sort of expansion you're seeing here, because that means this is what you want. Where, in other words, all of the momentum is going to the right. And that means that all of the possible momentum by the exhaust is then being pushed to the left. If it's doing this, that means that some of the velocity is going up and down. Now, I think it's probably something like 10% or something.
10%.
Unless something, that's the sort of territory I think we're in, and they want to get every percent out. If you had a complete vacuum, if this rocket I've drawn here was just designed for a complete vacuum, then you would actually draw on here until it became horizontal like that. It would actually go further out. If you see the rockets are designed for actually working in a vacuum, they extend much further, and then they do not have a loss. But the trouble is that's less efficient. You then get this effect down here. The reason they don't do that, making it long, is you would then get the problem they've got here, where you've reduced the hydrostatic pressure of the exhaust so much that in fact it's lower than the air atmosphere, and then it comes out this, and then you get rocking and all sorts of vibrations in here where this is moving up and down, and you have all sorts of terrible problems. This is something they're absolutely desperate to avoid. They want to make sure that when it leaves the edge of the nozzle, that there's no atmosphere coming back in here. So that's this is a terrible situation.
That would be the second and the third stages then, Rumpus, wouldn't it?
Yes, correct. So in the second and third, as I mentioned earlier, you would then have these much extended nozzles that are much longer and thinner than you do at the ground. But if you have the longer and thinner ones down here, you then get this effect. So that's why they have to go from sort of middle of the road. This is the situation they absolutely want to avoid. So they much prefer having this one where it's slightly flaring or under pressured. I think I can't remember the bloody name of the thing is now. Under pressured. It's over pressured, I think, sorry, because it's slightly greater than the atmospheric pressure here, and then it's going out to the side. You don't want that. This is an incredibly complicated subject, Brandon, and this is why it took the Germans many years of doing rockets to work out how these things work. So it's not straightforward.
It took them many years and you a few minutes to rewrite it. It's wonderful.
All the principles I've been describing were the ones that in scientific literature, in the rocket literature. If you go and look it up, they'll all be describing the things that I've described about under pressure, over pressure. If you wanted to give me a detail, if you want me to give you a detailed explanation of how you've got this thing about indeed it's leaving the edge and how come it's still affecting it. Indeed, that is a complicated issue and one that can be answered, but in this environment that would be quite difficult.
That's okay. No, I appreciate the time that you've spent on it. What I really, because I've been on the fence with this, and I'd like to see some kind of demonstration or scientific evidence in a vacuum changer sizable that would show these principles working, and that would just settle it. The ones that are on YouTube really fail to impress me for one reason or the other.
When he puts in a vacuum some black gunpowder, solid rocket fuel, and explosive peroxide rocket fuel, and tried to get him to ignite. Did you see his experiment? Sucked all the air out. He couldn't get high explosive to ignite. Couldn't get black powder to ignite. Could not get solid rocket fuel to ignite.
Yes, he could.
Yeah, poor boy was so depressed.
Yes, he could. There were people.
They used their own oxidizer.
You know how he did it?
Other people were.
He had another containment inside, so he had a container inside of the vacuum.
There was a problem.
The problem is that the space was really small, and that rocket the little vial that he used to ignite was inside another containment, which would have any kind of explosion would push off that containment, dude. There is no way that in a small chamber like that.
Little Cody cheated on his second fucking experiment with his little rocket in a vial. Fuck him.
All right,
you need quite a
explosive in a vacuum is the important point.
Vacuum. You're gonna need a much bigger vacuum if you want to claim it's not pushing off the vacuum walls.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's always in a small vacuum or a tube or something. But I mean, just look at the power of this thing. Look at how much energy is coming out the back of this.
But think of it.
How much pressure that's got to be creating. The heat.
11,000 pounds of velocity.
Brandon, in a vacuum, you can't create fire. You can't combust things. It can't happen in a vacuum. No flame, no fire, no combustion. Not in the vacuum. Sorry.
Right.
Cody.
They have their own oxidizers, though.
Yeah.
They have their own oxidizers, but it doesn't always work. I mean, people test them. They usually have how much duds with one maybe working for like a second.
Peroxide is high explosive. and it would not ignite in its vacuum chamber. It is explosive rocket fuel, considered high explosive, and it would not burn. It provides its own oxygen, and it would not combust. Solid rocket fuel with iron filings would not combust. Black gunpowder would not combust. You cannot sustain combustion in a vacuum, period. You can't get it started.
Yes, you can.
And the rockets in a vacuum.
I'll bring this one more thing up here. I was just watching the Saturn V rocket, and regardless of how I feel about the space program or my suspicions about what they're doing with all that, it is an amazing marvel of engineering. The F1 engine and the Saturn V rocket is just unbelievable, the things that they did.
Let's keep in mind, though, Brandon, the initial purpose of that rocket was to bomb other people.
I know. That's the sad
just
part
one
of it.
last thing.
Now it deceives people.
Just one last thing, Brandon, on this overexpansion. There is a part of the thrust that is related to the difference in pressure.
Oh, you're backing
here.
me up, are you, Rumpus? You're backing my claim
But this
up
is
now, are
a
you?
result of this expansion. But if you do it properly and you have this, then there is no effect. But yes, this is the complicated bit that I didn't want to get it into. That there is an effect where if you keep the pressure like this, then there's not an issue. But if you do it lower, then because you've got to deal with different pressures, there is an effect, as we've described. There is a loss of efficiency. There are equations for it, but it's going to be complicated, and so I don't.
But you just said if it leaves the nozzle, it's got nothing to do with it anymore.
If it leaves the nozzle like
job.
this, then there's not an issue with it. That means the pressure, the hydrostatic pressure inside the rocket and outside is the same. Now, when it isn't, there is an extra pressure effect that is a problem that you have to account for, which I could go into, but you haven't even understood the basic principles of this. I haven't had a chance to go into this detail.
You're just
But this
validating what you're saying, Rumpus. So how
No,
you
it's
say
got
Rumpus?
nothing to do with. It's got nothing to do with bouncing off. As we've described with the water thing, you've denied that this water thing would work. You have denied that this water reservoir thing works because you think it's pushing off the water, and you don't understand it's the mass being ejected. That's
Are you
the
putting
problem.
words in my mouth now? No one said it wouldn't work.
But you think it's got to press on the water. You don't understand it's the mass being ejected out here that
No,
counts.
I said, why do you think it goes quicker when it pushes off the water?
Do what? Sorry. What? So hold on. So are you saying you now understand that the mass being ejected is the key feature of the way a water boat like this works? It's the mass being ejected. It's nothing to do with it pressing. It's nothing to do with it pressing on the water. It's to do with the amount of mass you're chucking out the back. It could be going to a vacuum for all you care. You now change your.
Rumpus, you give other people a chance to talk.
Well, I'm trying to get you to answer. Are you saying that's your position or not?
And then the air.
So I want Flatsoid to respond.
Velocity gas will
I'm not interested in anything Flatsoid. He's just such an idiot. He's a complete moron. So Flatsoid, are you now saying you understand that the mass of the water coming out, like throwing out lots of bowling balls, is important, and it doesn't matter what it's pushing against, except unless you've got a barrier which then bounces it back.
The higher it goes,
So do you understand that it's the mass that's coming out, the flow of mass at a speed that's coming out here that matters? And this is this barrier business is a secondary effect. Do you understand that, Flatsoid? So
You
come on,
understand it's a
Flatsoid.
contradiction in statements. That's a contradiction in terms.
No, it's
because
not.
you're saying
You
it's got
don't
nothing to do
understand
with
it, do
but
you?
it's got
You say
something-
you do understand it, but you
Rumpus,
don't.
You want an answer, Rumpus. You want an answer, but you don't give me a chance to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a
Go ahead.
contradiction in statement. You say it's got
But it's
nothing
not.
to do with it, but it has something to do with it in the same question.
No, it doesn't. If it was no barrier here.
Up, Rumpus, when they're pushing against that wall and holding it there, are they building up a higher pressure or not?
No, it's not building up a high pressure on the. It's not affecting what the
Thank
pressure.
you for proving you don't know what you're talking about. Of
You're a
course it's
moron.
building a higher pressure
Here
to
we
push it
no,
off.
no. Look, it
Yes,
does
it
not build
does.
up any more pressure on the jet that's coming out here. The pressure, the force that this jet, but the propeller, the impeller, whatever it is here, is not affected by this presence here. What can affect it if it's bouncing back on other bits of the boat or it bounces back towards the boat? This thing generates just as much force whether this is here.
A couple super chats. Rufus St. Hubbins, cheers. $4.99. Appreciate the support, man. Thank you very much. Aaron Armstrong, Flatside proves Rumpus's point perfectly. I'm not sure about that. Maybe I'll have to repeat that when I go back on.
It's just how it goes out.
Correct.
The nozzle. But in the same sentence, you say if you do put a wall behind there, it's going to affect it. So
only in the sense of it bounces off that wall and then can hit
so then it
back
has
on the
got something
object.
to. So it has
Well,
got something to
it
do with
doesn't
once
change
the
the
nozzle.
force generated by the nozzle.
You contra-
That's what's it. It's a tiny effect in comparison to what the propeller business is doing. Whereas you seem to think it's all this other barrier business. It's not. This is just a secondary negligible
Rumpus, you want to
effect.
test it?
Robert,
You
were
wanna
you
test
ever on a
this?
jet ski, were you?
Sorry?
Were you
I
ever
didn't
on
hear
a
what you
jet
said.
ski? Were you ever on a jet ski?
Yes, I've been on a jet ski, yes.
Yeah. How do you brake? How do you break down on a jet ski?
Well, that's irrelevant. We're not talking about braking. I mean, obviously, if this has resistance, I mean, if this thing were to stop rotating, then there's a big hole in the front here in a jet ski, and it would come here and then hit that and stop. Whereas normally, obviously, it's be rotating and it would go out. So the fact there's quite a lot of resistance, there's quite a lot of frontage area here. That if it's not accelerating the water, then it's going to act like a brake just by turning it off.
And why would it act like a brake if you turn it off?
Oh my God! Right, here we go. Okay, I know. I'd say these things I think a little child would understand. Right, there is a propeller in here. If I move a boat along with the propeller in the off position, it will cause drag. If it's in the go position and rotating, it will cause thrust. I mean, why am I having to explain these simple things to people who are supposedly adults?
So you would agree that there's something
God.
of substance to be able to create this movement?
I've no idea what you've just said in any way is relevant to anything we've said before. I don't know what you're talking about now.
So Rumpus, just to give you an example of what we're talking about. If we had, you ever see that those guys that fly above the water and they're wearing these packs that basically shoot the water outside?
There's a picture of that in the chat, you moron.
So I don't know that. So anyway, you can chill out, dude. It's all good. Your feelings are hurt. It's obvious.
No, you're a moron. It hurts me that I'm having to talk to a moron.
So listen, if I have a garden hose, a big enough one, pressed to the ground, and I turn it on, will that, if there's enough force to come into that garden hose, would it lift me off the ground?
Well, obviously, if there's enough, but it would do.
So,
but it would do the same. It would do the same if it wasn't pointing on the ground.
In the same principle,
it wouldn't do. It would lift you off the ground, even if it wasn't. It would lift you off the ground anyway.
Shut up. If in the same principle, if I had an air pressor or air compressed container with me, and it was big enough, and if I held the press container to the ground and I let it go, and if there was enough pressure in that container, would it lift me off the ground?
Well, you've just used the word enough. Obviously, if there's enough to do what you said.
Well, it's air pressure coming out, though. It's just air pressure, right? It's just a compressed container, and what I'm doing is I'm pushing it to the ground, and I'm standing on it. If I turn it off, let me finish. And if I turn it off,
it could do the same in a vacuum.
Let me finish.
It could do the same in a vacuum.
Let me finish. I turn it on.
It could do the same in a vacuum without having to put it on the ground.
Don't
it
be
would
afraid.
do the same
it's
in a
okay,
vacuum.
little princess. It's all good.
It would do
really
the same in a
easy to
vacuum
embarrass
without you having to press it to the ground.
So you understand that it would lift you off the ground. This air pressure coming out of a cylinder that was compressed with enough velocity to overpower your weight.
You don't even know what that means, do you?
Yeah.
So
enough
it would do the same.
It would
in
overpower
the vacuum.
your weight. It would overpower your weight.
And the same would happen without you having to put it on the ground.
What happens if I remove
You don't have to put it on the ground. You don't have to put it on the ground. Yeah, still do it. If it's strong enough,
if I remove
to lift you up, it wouldn't matter if the ground was there or not.
It wouldn't.
No. Okay, Rumpus, I can give you
you expose yourself, dude.
Rumpus, I can actually debunk your whole theory right now.
You're debunking the conservation of momentum then, which would be quite impressive.
Do you think there's a height restriction he can go with that jet, or that water jet from his feet, with that jetpack water thing? Do you think there's a height restriction he can go?
Yes. And do you know why that is? Because the water has to be pumped from below and has to rise up all the way up to the person. That means it loses pressure as it goes up from the water level, you moron.
If you feed it water, if you could feed it water all the time, the same, and you can go height, do you think it's still going to be able to go the same height?
If you have the water, if he had the water reservoir on his back, it wouldn't make any difference. No.
Are you sure about that? You want to
Yes,
test it
I'm
out?
sure about that. The reason they
test it
can't
out.
only go high is because they have to pump it from the ground and therefore has to climb and acquire all that potential and lose all the pressure as a result of having to pump that water up. So the same reason why if you point a fire hose up in the air, it only gets to a certain height because it's used up all the kinetic energy, all the pressure, and then uses it up getting up to that particular height. You are a moron.
No, do you understand that when you build hydrostatic pressure, it's creating more pressure to be able to push it up, to push it down through the jets? Do you understand that?
That was
Because
gibberish.
if
Say that
it's not,
again.
the
Repeat
less
that
water
gibberish.
the less he's pushing down, the less he has inertia to push up. So you actually just debunking yourself.
You don't know what inertia means, do you?
We're talking about the conservation
all the
of magnetic.
words you've used, you've misused them. Right, let's do it slowly. Right, let's do it slowly then. Let's do it stage by stage. Let's go through your explanation again, and we'll go through each little word you're using stage by stage. We'll see if we can make some sense of it. So say again. You said something about it gains. Just say what you said again.
Which part?
Well, you only spent 20 seconds on the sentence. Can you not reproduce it? From the start to finish of that sentence.
If you had to have a reservoir of water on top of him that would be able to create the same pressure the whole time.
All right, yeah. So we're talking about. So we're just talking. So we've got the pressure. So we've got the guy with the water on his back. Okay, right, yeah. I didn't understand that's what you were talking about.
And he's been able to push the pressure. Would he be able to go infinitely with altitude then?
Correct. Yeah, assuming he could carry. Assuming he had enough water to keep on going.
I'm sorry.
When you guys are done with Rumpus, can I get a couple minutes with him, please?
Yeah, I get it because he's just showing ignorance.
No, you just don't understand the basic principle, do you? You're a moron.
After Jeremy asks his questions, we gotta do final thoughts. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'll save it for another time.
Are you sure? You can go for it. You got time.
All right, real quick. I'm measuring from point A to point B, right? And I got the refraction numbers right here. This is from hold on one second.
Are you sharing something?
No. I'm just I'm trying to find it on my phone. I'm trying to find a distance. Oh, here we go. This is how many feet? 1,252 feet. Right, so that's the distance. Okay, Rumpus, you got this?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't aware I was supposed to be making notes. Okay, sorry, I was just looking at something that Paige should have done. Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry, Jeremy. Could you repeat that?
1,252 feet, horizontal line.
Okay.
That's what we're looking at.
Right.
Then we got here's the what do you need for refraction? Humidity, temperature, and pressure.
You just need temperature. I mean, you just actually the temperature gradient. Then you need the temperature gradient. So in other words, you need to know what the temperature is at ground level. The temperature is a few feet above that, and then a few feet above that, and then a few feet above that. But you need the the vertical temperature gradient.
So if I just had the temperature number at point A and point B, you wouldn't be able to tell anything from that?
Sorry, yeah, you did ask me earlier. Sorry, yes, you're right. I did let you. Yes, I did. Well, that's because there was some noise at that time. Yes, sorry, I didn't make that clear. You need the temperature gradient. When I said you needed the temperature, I wasn't absolutely clear because I was being hassled at the time. Yes, you need the temperature gradient. Sorry about that. Yes, you need the.
Have you seen the main surveyor when he debated Whitsitt about the plumb lines aren't parallel?
I have seen that, and I understand the concept. Yes.
Yeah. But you would agree that doesn't. You would not know anything about how the light was bending in between because there's only those two temperature readings at point A and point B.
Well, you could guess. You could say, "Here's a typical temperature gradient for these conditions."
You could guess. Yeah, you could guess.
But there are some I mean, the point is that always the refraction is is liable to be even if you're say working at about 6 feet high. The refraction will cause a 20% error, say, in your perception of how much the drop is, for instance. So if you, for instance, say we know that there's 8 inches drop over a mile, so therefore you could say that 20% of that you wouldn't be able to observe with an auto level. You would get.
So we're on the same. Yeah, so we're on the same page. We both know that that when main surveyor measured plumb lines aren't parallel, that was bullshit. Then, right?
No, he was right. I mean, the point is you can say well, hold on, let me finish. Well, let me answer. The point is that the error will be small in comparison to the curvature of the Earth. So it's only be 20%, say, of the curvature of the Earth. So although you're trying to measure, say, 8 inches over a mile, 2 inches, it'll be out by 2 inches due to refraction. It can vary, of course. I mean, what I think he may have done is, I think what he may have done, he may have got up higher, and therefore the effect of refraction would be less if you're not going, if you're doing it, because the problems with refraction all occur when you're near the ground. It's the temperature gradient there that counts. As you go up, then and certainly if you're pointing down, then the refraction effects are much less. So I can't remember the particular. Okay.
Hold on. My final statement, my final question is: unless you have those 3 temperature readings, you're just guessing, right?
Yeah, but you can. Is it
a yes or no?
Well, no, you're not just guessing. No, it's not like just saying I'm going to pick a number, because there are typical values that he can say. This is what's normal for the typical surveying conditions, and they go for the 7/6. What he did, I suspect, did he not allow for refraction using 7/6R, which is the typical one that you would use? If you allow for that, then you're allowing for that 20% error, and so you can then get the answer you want, because that is in typical conditions. When you're not in strange miragey conditions, it's typically close to 7/6R. So if he used that, then he's not guessing. He's using the industry standard correction for refraction.
Right. I don't want to keep Brandon, but that was this was to measure plumb lines not being parallel, which was to prove that the Earth was curving. So you're already begging the question of 7/6R in that, if that's what he used, and if that's not what he used, and he just used the numbers that he had for temperature, humidity, and pressure. You've already said that wouldn't tell us how refraction is working. So thank you, Rumpus.
All right, very interesting. Did have a $10 Streamlabs from Bandsaw Bandit, so appreciate that, Bandsaw. Thank you. And let's do final thoughts, and we'll start off with Bandsaw himself. Go for it, man.
Yeah, good show, mate. Good show. It's good to hear that we've established that Rumpus has no idea how jet boats work on top of a skateboard. So thanks, Rumpus. All right, good show.
Thanks, Bandsaw. Flat Earth Data.
Yeah, so I've had this conversation with a few other people in the community, Globers, particularly Professor Phil Bell. I brought up the same situation or the same observation. In other words, if my vehicle is going to be representative of the gas coming out the gas coming out of the rocket, it will then propel itself against the atmosphere. I notice the faster my car goes, the more air resistant I get. So one could conclude from the practical observation of this that a high velocity gas, which rockets propel 11 to 14,000 miles an hour, the fluid comes out of the exhaust of these nozzles. The idea that mass times velocity equals a pressure force, just as my car has mass and velocity and creates a pressure force against the wind, then I'm applying the same principles of physics. I'm not going outside of the principles of physics so that I can have a rocket work in a vacuum. I'm applying everyday applied observation, applied science to my thought process, as you should in any ad hoc explanation that comes across your path, like a gun in a vacuum.
Thanks, Data. Flatsoid.
Yeah, I just want to say with Bandsaw Bandit the same. Yeah, thanks, Rumpus, for showing you actually have no idea what you're talking about. You're so delusional. You contradict your own statements and still think you're correct, which is actually very sad.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing that.
I'm trying to kill some time.
Oh, you're off mute, Jeremy.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Thanks for showing that. You say once gas leaves a rocket's thrust up the nozzle, it's got nothing to do with it anymore. But the aircraft carrier debunks that totally. So thanks for showing you just think you know what you know.
Thank you, Flatsoid. Gadget.
Yeah, great show, Brandon. Time for a cup of tea now. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Cool. Thanks, Gadget. Jeremy.
Sorry about that, Flatsoid. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show that the main surveyor, when he measured plumb lines aren't parallel, is just, total nonsense. He has no idea. You're going out. It's guesswork. And if he did use 7/6R, then that's just begging the question in the first place to say that anyways, I actually agree with the way the Globers describe rockets working in a vacuum. Theoretically, it would work if I believe they were up there floating around in space, but that's another story. So, anyways, have a good night.
Thanks, Jeremy. Jimbo. Paid NASA shill. No? Okay. SE Montreal.
Yes, sir, Brandon. Oh boy, I just stopped laughing. What a show tonight. The rumpus never puts us down. I thought I had a good paradox with my bridge skateboard paradox, but wow. Now we have a water-propelled skateboard. This is too good. Good show. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks, SE. And the real Bob Dole. No? All right. Rumpus, your last. Go for it. Final thoughts.
Right. Unfortunately, I mean, we're demonstrating here the low IQ of some of these people who basically couldn't put an equation together, couldn't model any of this, and I can do this and actually get the right answers. And the fact that they don't understand how those floaty jet things work, and then you'll get idiotic comments from Flatzoid or everyone. I can't remember now. I presume it's Flatzoid. He didn't understand why they got a limit on the height, and he thought it was completely the wrong reason. These guys don't have any understanding of anything. And in fact, you, Brandon, have demonstrated, yes, you've actually demonstrated you've got the ability to learn and understand some things here. So that's good. Yes, everything I've said is correct. There is no effect except from things bouncing back. So when I was talking about there being no effect of the exhaust going out, I was obviously saying, not thinking of it hitting something and then coming back. I didn't include that in the equation. And that's perfectly correct. And that's how rocket, if you look at the rocket literature, I've described it exactly, and they don't worry about it hitting back off something. Though there are things called ground effects and things involving anybody, but fundamentally it works like the skateboard and the bowling ball. Conservation of momentum, or you can think of it as firing a machine gun in a vacuum, or you can think of it doing the water out of a jet. All those things are talking about the conservation of momentum. And if you shoot something out the back with a speed that has mass, it has momentum, and that momentum, due to the conservation of momentum, is then imparted to the thing that did all the throwing out, and it goes in the opposite direction to the stuff that was going out the back. And exhaust of a rocket is very massive. There's 90% of these huge rockets is fuel. They're incredibly heavy, and they go at an incredible speed. So they're chucking stuff out, lots of little bullets, or lots of water, or however you want to think about it. Lots of momentum out the back, and it has to go in the opposite direction. And it does that perfectly well, whether it's in a vacuum chamber or not. And of course, the reason they don't put rockets in vacuum chambers is they would cease to be a vacuum chamber very shortly. There's no need to do it. The principles have been understood, and providing you've got your rocket nozzle shapes understood as to what will happen about these, the first thing that Brandon brought up about this overpressure, underpressure lark, providing you understand that concept, you can do all the testing you need to do in the atmosphere, and then because you've done previous rockets and checked that all your nozzles and things work, and obviously then do a test if you're doing a full-size rocket on your to check your nozzles, then it's all sorted. So it's just a case of skateboards and bowling balls model the rockets exactly. Thank you very much.
I'm back. Can I have a word? I'm sorry I was late. I was in the kitchen doing something, but I'm back. Could I have a word?
Yeah, go for it, Jimbo.
Well, just offhandedly, I know what it smells like to come in a room where someone's been blowing sunshine up someone's ass now. But that's beside the point. Little Cody at Cody Labs, again, he has vacuums, and when the flat earth was kind of new and he heard about it, he tried to prove that rockets could actually have combustion in space, in the vacuum. That was in question. So he sucked all the air out of his vacuum chamber. He put in 3 combustibles with their own oxygen supply. The gunpowder gets its oxygen from potassium nitrate. The peroxides, it's highly super loaded with oxygen of its own. And the sugar with potassium nitrate and iron is solid rocket fuel. He put all 3 of those in his vacuum chamber, and with air in it, he could light each one. But when he sucked the air out, he couldn't get any of them to combust, including the peroxide, which is a high explosive. It's very easy to detonate, and it gives off a lot of bang. That's why they call it a high explosive. It's very powerful and not very stable. But even that would not combust in a vacuum. So all these stories and, the nonsense physics that Rumpus wants us to adopt, that we should understand, but we don't because we're dumb freaking flat earthers, You can blow
Some
it
of
out
these
easy.
solid propellants.
I didn't interrupt you, son. So I guess I'm done because the rest would just be interruption.
There are
It was a good
explanations for
show. Have
this.
a good night.
Perfectly reasonable explanations
All
for why Cody's lab didn't go off.
That's okay. You guys can talk about him in a minute. My final thoughts. Appreciate good show, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining the panel. Great discussion. Good topics. Thank you, Rumpus, for your drawings and your hilarious water jet boat. It's very good. Good discussion. I appreciate it when it doesn't devolve into us insulting each other and all of that. It does turn into an interesting conversation. So thank you. And I won't be recording an after show today as I am leaving directly after the show. But obviously the Discord will still be open if anybody wants to come in here. Anybody in YouTube wants to come in. The link is in the channel description. And it should be in the video description, the live stream description. So pop on in. I'm sure people will be around for a while talking. And we will see you on Monday, which is a holiday here in the U.S., but we'll still be on. So we'll see you then. Thanks again, guys. I'll be back. All right. Oh, shout out to Gourdzilla, 37, who donated $5. Not enough to even begin to cover the brain damage you must suffer listening to Globers all day. Thank you for the show. Thank you, Gourdzilla. Appreciate it. As you know, we share some of the favorite shows that are getting canceled, all of us, and it's a shame to see. Hopefully we'll get a platform where we don't have to worry about that, but thanks, Gourdzilla. Okay, everybody, have a good weekend, have a good night, and we will talk to you on Monday. See you later. Bye.